My son dumped me at a nursing home to sell my house. I quietly signed every single paper he put in front of me. Later, he and his wife popped champagne and celebrated all week. But when they walked into the notary office to claim their check, the notary looked up and said, "The keys have already been sent to the new owner." My son froze, unable to breathe. I just smiled slightly and whispered, "Checkmate. But to understand the end, you have to witness the beginning." My name is Felix Turner. I am 68 years old, and until yesterday I was just a line item in my son's budget that he was desperate to erase. I spent 40 years as a logistics manager for a shipping fleet. My job was to see the small details that others missed to track movement and to ensure that everything ended up exactly where it was supposed to be. My son Kendrick and his wife Skylar forgot that about me. They saw gray hair and a slow walk and assumed my mind had slowed down too. They were wrong. Before I continue this story of how I turned the tables, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to family who underestimated your worth. The leather seat of Kendrick's BMW was cold against my back. The air conditioning was blasting even though it was a mild October afternoon in Atlanta. In the passenger seat, Skylar pulled a bottle of perfume from her designer bag. She did not ask if I was okay. She did not turn around. She simply sprayed a cloud of floral chemical mist into the air. "It smells like old people back there," she muttered to Kendrick. "It is sticking to the upholstery." Kendrick gripped the steering wheel tighter. His knuckles were white. I noticed a slight tremor in his hands. It was not fear. It was the withdrawal of a man who owes money to dangerous people. I had seen that shake before in drivers who gambled away their cargo. "Just drive," Skylar Kendrick snapped. "We are almost there." I sat in the back silent. I looked out the window as the familiar streets of my neighborhood blurred by. We passed the park where I taught Kendrick to throw a baseball. We passed the corner store where Esther, my late wife, used to buy fresh peaches on Saturdays. Every corner held a memory, and my son was driving past them at 50 miles per hour, desperate to leave them behind. "You know this is for the best, Dad," Kendrick said, watching me through the rearview mirror. His eyes refused to meet mine. "The house is too big for you. The maintenance is too expensive. You need professional care." I did not respond. I did not tell him that I had paid off the mortgage 10 years ago. I did not tell him that I cleaned the gutters myself last week. I did not tell him that the only thing expensive about my life was the money he constantly borrowed and never returned. Skylar laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. "Professional care is right. You left the stove on last week, Felix. You are a hazard." I had not left the stove on. Skylar had come over to borrow wine glasses and had bumped the knob. I saw it on the kitchen camera I installed 3 months ago, but I said nothing. I needed them to believe I was losing my mind. It was part of the strategy. The car slowed down. We were not heading to the luxury assisted living facility Kendrick had shown me in the brochures. We were turning into a gravel driveway on the outskirts of town. The sign was peeling. Greenwood Nursing Home. The grass was overgrown. The building looked like a converted motel from the 70s. "Is this it?" I asked. My voice was raspy. I made sure to sound weak. "It is temporary," Dad Kendrick said quickly, "just until the house sells. Then we will get you into the place with the golf course. I promise." He was lying. A logistics manager knows when a shipment is being diverted. This was a dumping ground. The car stopped. Skylar opened her door and stepped out, her heels crunching on the gravel. She opened the trunk and pulled out my single duffel bag. She did not wait for me. She threw the bag onto the sidewalk. It landed with a heavy thud. Inside were all the clothes they allowed me to keep. "Get out, Felix," Skylar said. She checked her watch. "We have a dinner reservation at 7. We do not have time for a long goodbye." I opened the door slowly. My joints ached, but not as much as my heart. I stepped out into the humid air. The smell of the nursing home hit me, stale cafeteria food and industrial bleach. Kendrick came around the car. He was holding a thick folder. He did not look at the building. He could not bear to see where he was leaving me. He just wanted the signature. "Here, Dad," he said, thrusting the papers at me. "We need to finalize the admission and the power of attorney, so I can handle the bills while you settle in." He held out a pen. It was a cheap plastic pen, not the fountain pen I had given him for his college graduation. I looked at the papers. The top page was the admission form, but underneath I saw the edge of a different document. A quitclaim deed. He wasn't just handling bills, he was taking full title of the house. I looked at my son. He was sweating. He looked at Skylar, then back at me. "Just sign it, Dad," he pleaded. "Please, do not make this difficult." Skylar tapped her foot. "Oh, for God's sake, give it to me." She tried to grab the clipboard, but I held on to it. I looked Kendrick in the eye. "You promise this is for the best?" I asked. "Yes, Dad. I swear. It is for the best." For whom I wondered, but I did not say it. I took the clipboard. I leaned it against the hood of the BMW. I took a breath. This was the moment, the point of no return. I switched the pen to my left hand. I have been right-handed my entire life. Kendrick knew this. He had watched me write checks, sign report cards, and fill out logbooks with my right hand for 35 years. But today he was so blinded by greed, so desperate to get to that dinner reservation, that he did not see. I pressed the pen to the paper. My left hand shook. It was awkward. The letters came out jagged and uneven. The signature looked like the scrawl of a man with advanced Parkinson-S or severe dementia. It looked nothing like the crisp, elegant signature of Felix Turner. I signed the admission form. Then I flipped the page. The quitclaim deed. I signed that one too, letting the pen slip and slide, creating a mess of ink that barely resembled a name. "There," I whispered, handing the clipboard back. Kendrick snatched it. He glanced at the signatures, seeing only ink on the line. He did not analyze the stroke. He did not verify the slant. He just saw dollar signs. "Thanks, Dad," he said, backing away. "The nurses are expecting you inside. We will visit Sunday." Skylar was already in the car. She rolled down the window. "Bye, Felix. Try not to cause trouble." Kendrick jumped into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life. He did not wave. He peeled out of the driveway, gravel spraying against my shins. The BMW disappeared around the corner, heading back to the city, back to my house, back to the life they thought they had stolen. I stood there for a moment, watching the dust settle. The trembling in my hand stopped. I straightened my back. The hunch I had faked for the last month disappeared. I took a deep breath of the fresh air, ignoring the bleach smell from the building. I picked up my duffel bag. It was light. I walked toward the entrance of the nursing home. The automatic doors slid open. A nurse was sitting behind the reception desk, looking bored. She looked up, surprised to see a new resident walking with such purpose. "Name?" she asked, popping her gum. "Felix Turner," I said. My voice was clear. It was deep. It was the voice that used to command a warehouse of 200 men. She checked her list. "Oh, right. Room 104. Down the hall. Your son said you might be a bit confused." I smiled. It was a cold smile. My son says a lot of things. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small prepaid burner phone I had bought with cash 2 days ago. Kendrick had taken my smartphone, thinking he had cut me off from the world. He forgot that a logistics manager always has a backup communication line. "I need to make a call," I told the nurse. Technically, cell phones are allowed, but I did not wait for her permission. I dialed the number I had memorized. It rang once, twice. Then a gruff voice answered. "Rothstein here." "It is Felix," I said. "Are you in?" Rothstein asked. "I am in," I replied. "The package has been delivered. The papers are signed." Did he notice the hand? "No," I said, watching the empty driveway where my son had left me. He noticed nothing. "He is on his way to the house now," good Rothstein said. "I have the notary ready for the real transfer. The charity is expecting the funds by tomorrow morning. By the time he tries to use that power of attorney, it will be a worthless piece of paper." "Initiate phase 1. I ordered. I hung up the phone. The nurse was staring at me. "Is everything okay, Mr. Turner?" she asked. "You look intense." I looked at her. For the first time in months, I felt alive. "Everything is perfect," I said. "I am just taking out the trash." I walked down the hall to room 104. The linoleum floor was cracked. The walls were a depressing shade of beige. But it did not matter. I would not be here long. My son thought he had buried me in this place. He did not realize he had just planted a seed, and the harvest was going to be bitter. I sat on the narrow bed and waited. The real show was about to start at my house, and thanks to the hidden cameras, I had a front row seat. Room 104 was silent except for the humming of the mini fridge. The nurse had turned off the lights hours ago, assuming I was asleep. I was not asleep. I was sitting upright in the narrow hospital bed with my back against the cold wall. In my hand, I held my burner phone. In my ears, I wore a pair of noise-canceling earbuds. My body was in this sterile prison, but my eyes and ears were back in the home I had built with my own hands. I tapped the screen. The video feed loaded instantly. The image was grainy at first, but cleared up quickly. I had installed the cameras myself 2 weeks ago, disguised as standard electrical outlets. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, one in the master bedroom. They were high definition and equipped with sensitive microphones. I saw everything. My living room was unrecognizable. It had only been 4 hours since Skylar had dumped me on the sidewalk, yet she had already transformed my sanctuary into a carnival. The furniture I had polished every Sunday was pushed against the walls. A table was set up in the center of the room, covered in bottles of champagne and expensive vodka. The air was filled with loud electronic music that vibrated the bass through my headphones. There were people there I did not know. Strangers. They were walking on my Persian rug with their shoes on. They were drinking from my crystal glasses. They were laughing. I watched as Skylar walked into the frame. She was wearing a silk robe that she must have brought with her. She looked like she owned the place. She held a glass of red wine in one hand and pointed a finger with the other. "Get rid of it!" she shouted over the music. A man in blue coveralls stepped forward. He was holding a sledgehammer. He looked hesitant. "Are you sure, ma'am?" the man asked. "This is a solid stone fireplace. It looks like original masonry. It will be a mess to take down." I gripped the phone tighter. That fireplace was the heart of the house. Esther and I had laid those stones together. We had saved for 3 years to buy that river rock. Every winter for 30 years we sat in front of that fire drinking cocoa and planning our future. It was where I told her I had been promoted. It was where we cried when we lost our first child. It was not just stone, it was our history. "Do it," Skylar ordered, taking a sip of wine. "It makes the room look dark and depressing. I want an open concept. I want modern. Smash it." Kendrick was standing in the corner. He was holding a beer. He looked pale. "Sky, maybe we should wait until the sale goes through," he mumbled. "If we damage the structure, the appraisal might go down." Skylar spun around. Her eyes were fierce. "Stop being such a coward, Kendrick. It is our house now." The old man signed the papers. "We can do whatever we want. Besides, nobody buys houses with old dusty fireplaces anymore. We are increasing the value. Now smash it." The workman shrugged. He lifted the sledgehammer. I flinched physically in my bed as the first blow landed. Crack! The sound was amplified through my earbuds. It sounded like a gunshot. A chunk of river rock fell to the floor. Dust billowed into the air. "Yeah," Skylar cheered, raising her glass. "Hit it harder! Crack!" Another blow. The mantelpiece made of solid oak split down the middle. That was the mantel where Esther lined up Kendrick-esque baseball trophies. Now it was splintered wood on the floor. I did not close my eyes. I forced myself to watch. A logistics manager does not look away from a disaster. He documents it. I tapped the record button on the screen. The red dot appeared. Every swing of the hammer was being saved to a secure cloud server. Every piece of debris was evidence. "This is destruction of property," I whispered to the empty nursing home room. But I did not call the police yet. Not yet. I needed them to feel comfortable. I needed them to think they were untouchable. When an enemy feels safe, they make mistakes. They get greedy. The workman continued to swing. My living room filled with gray dust. The strangers at the party cheered him on like it was a game. Kendrick just stood there, staring at his feet, letting his wife erase his childhood. I switched the camera view. I could not watch the fireplace anymore. I needed to see what else they were doing. I tapped on the feed for the master bedroom. The room was dark, but the night vision on the camera illuminated everything in a ghostly green glow. This was the room I had shared with Esther until the day she died. Since her funeral, I had kept it exactly as she left it. Her perfume bottle was still on the vanity. Her reading glasses were on the nightstand. It was a sacred space. The door to the bedroom flew open. The light flicked on, blinding the night vision sensor for a second before it adjusted. Skylar walked in. She was followed by 2 of her friends, women I had never seen before. They were giggling. "Oh my God," Skylar said, flopping onto the bed. "My bed. This mattress is ancient. We have to order the memory foam one tomorrow." One of the friends walked over to the closet. She pulled open the door. My suits were hanging there next to Esther-esque dresses, which I had never the heart to pack away. "Look at these rags," the friend laughed, pulling out one of Esther-esque floral Sunday dresses. "Did people actually wear this stuff?" "It smells like mothballs and sadness," Skylar said, rolling her eyes. "Just trash it all. I ordered a dumpster for tomorrow morning. Everything goes. My heart hammered against my ribs. My blood pressure was rising. I could feel the pulse in my neck. They were going to throw away Esther's dresses. Then Skylar walked over to the dresser. She spotted the mahogany jewelry box. It was not a fancy box. I had made it myself in woodshop class in high school. But inside was the only wealth we truly had. Skylar opened the lid. "Jackpot," she whispered. She reached in and pulled out the pearl necklace. It was not a diamond necklace. It was not gold. But to me, it was priceless. I had bought those pearls for Esther on our 10th anniversary. I had worked double shifts for 6 months to afford them. Esther treated them like royalty. She only wore them on Christmas and Easter. She used to say, "Felix, these pearls are the promise that we made it." Skylar dangled the pearls from her finger. She held them up to the light. "Are these real?" her friend asked. Skylar bit one of the pearls lightly. She scoffed. "Probably cultured. Maybe even fake. The old man was cheap. He never spent money on anything decent." She was wrong. They were real saltwater pearls. Akoya. Grade A. And I was not cheap. I was prudent. I saved so my son could go to college without debt. I saved so we could own our home outright. Skylar did not understand the difference between being cheap and being responsible. She put the necklace around her neck. It looked wrong on her. It looked like a halo placed on a demon. "Does it make me look like a rich widow?" She posed in the mirror, making a duck face. Her friends laughed. "It makes you look like you are ready to inherit the earth," one of them said. "I am ready," Skylar said, stroking the pearls. "I deserve this. After putting up with that boring old man and his lectures for 5 years, I deserve every penny." She turned to the dresser and started sweeping the rest of Esther's jewelry into her purse. The silver locket with Kendrick's baby picture, the sapphire earrings my mother had given Esther, the gold wedding band, everything. She was looting the dead. I switched apps on my phone. My hands were trembling with rage, but my mind was ice cold. I opened my encrypted messaging app. I found the contact named Rothstein. I typed quickly. "Target has breached the master bedroom. They are destroying the fireplace. Now they are stealing Esther's jewelry. Value exceeds $5,000. That makes it grand larceny." 3 dots appeared on the screen. Rothstein was awake. He was always awake. The reply came. "Do you want me to send the police now? We have enough for an arrest." I looked at the video feed again. Skylar was spinning around in the room wearing my dead wife's necklace, laughing with her mouth open. Kendrick had walked in. He saw the necklace. For a second, he looked like he might say something. That was his mother's favorite necklace. He knew what it meant. "Nice babe," Kendrick said instead. "It looks better on you than it ever did on Mom." That broke the last thread of mercy I had for him. He had not just betrayed me. He had betrayed the memory of the woman who birthed him. I looked at Rothstein's message. "Do you want me to send the police now?" I thought about it. If I sent the police now, they would be arrested for theft and property damage. It would be a hassle. They would get bail. They would fight it. No, I wanted total victory. I wanted them to feel the height of joy before the fall. I wanted them to think they had won. I wanted them to sell the furniture. I wanted them to empty the bank accounts. I wanted them to dig the hole so deep that they could never climb out. I typed my reply. Negative. Do not intervene. Let them take it all. Let them break everything. Add the charges to the file, but keep it sealed. We wait for the notary. Copy that. Rothstein replied. Be patient, Felix. The bigger the party, the worse the hangover. I closed the messaging app and went back to the camera feed. Skylar was now jumping on the bed, still wearing the pearls. Kendrick was popping another bottle of champagne, spraying it over the room, soaking the carpet. Enjoy it, I whispered to the screen. Drink my wine. Wear her pearls. Break my stone. Because every second of this video is adding years to your sentence. I took the earbuds out. The silence of the nursing home rushed back in. I could hear the snoring of the man in the room next door. I folded the blanket over my chest. I did not sleep that night. I lay awake visualizing the chessboard. I moved my pieces in my mind. The knight was the notary. The bishop was the bank manager. The rook was the police captain who owed me a favor. And the king was me. Tomorrow Kendrick would come to demand my bank access. He would try to strip the last of my dignity. He would find that the old logistics manager had already rerouted the shipment. I closed my eyes and waited for the sun to rise. The game had officially begun. Kendrick arrived at the nursing home the next morning looking like a man who was being hunted. He wore sunglasses even though it was overcast. His designer shirt was wrinkled. He smelled of stale coffee and nervous sweat. I sat in the plastic chair by the window watching him walk across the parking lot. He was checking his phone every 3 steps. I knew exactly why he was agitated. My contact at the bank had alerted me that Kendrick tried to withdraw $5,000 from the joint account an hour ago. The transaction was declined. The walls were closing in on him. He pushed open the door to room 104 with too much force. The handle banged against the wall. "Hey, Dad," Kendrick said. His voice was tight. It sounded like a violin string about to snap. I looked up from my newspaper. I kept my face blank. "Hello, son. I did not expect to see you so soon. Did you bring my reading glasses?" Kendrick waved his hand dismissively. "I forgot them. I will bring them next time. Look, we have a small problem." He pulled up a chair and sat close to me. Too close. I could see the red veins in his eyes. He lowered his sunglasses. "The insurance company is acting up." Kendrick lied. He was always a terrible liar. He looked down and to the left whenever he fabricated a story. "They are refusing to cover your heart medication and the special supplements the doctor ordered." I folded my newspaper slowly. My heart medication was fully covered by my veteran benefits. I knew this. He knew this. But he was banking on my senility. "Is that so?" I asked. "That sounds serious." "It is very serious, Dad. They need a payment today or they will stop the treatment. I tried to use my card, but the chip is malfunctioning. I need to use your debit card just for the copay. I will pay you back as soon as my new card arrives." He held out his hand. His palm was damp. I looked at his hand. This was the same hand that used to reach for mine when he was a scared little boy. Now it was reaching for my lifeline to cut it. "How much is it?" I asked. Kendrick hesitated. $2,000. "These are very advanced supplements." I reached into the drawer of the nightstand. I pulled out my wallet. It was old leather worn smooth by decades of use. I opened it and took out the blue debit card. Kendrick's eyes locked onto the plastic. He licked his lips. It was a primal reaction of greed and desperation. "Here," I said, holding the card out. He snatched it. "Thanks, Dad. You are a lifesaver. Literally. I just need the PIN." "I think I forgot it. Is it still your birth year?" I paused. I looked him dead in the eye. "No, Kendrick. I changed it last year." "Do you not remember?" He forced a laugh. "Right. Of course. My memory is so bad lately. Too much stress at work." "What is the new code?" I leaned in. I lowered my voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "It is the year you graduated college. I was so proud of you that day, so I made it my code." Kendrick blinked. For a second I saw a flash of panic. He did not remember the year. He had barely scraped by in college, spending more time at fraternities than in the library. "Right," he said quickly. "Of course. 1998. "No," I said. 2002. "Right. 2002. Got it." He stood up abruptly. The card was already in his pocket. "I have to run to the pharmacy now before they close. I will be right back with your receipt." He practically ran out of the room. I watched him go. I did not tell him that I graduated him in 2001. 2002 was the year he got arrested for a DUI. I gave him the wrong year on purpose. But even if I gave him the right year, it would not have mattered. I had reported the card stolen yesterday morning. I picked up my newspaper again, but I did not read. I counted the minutes. 5 minutes to get to the ATM at the gas station down the street. 2 minutes to insert the card and try the PIN. 1 minute to try again. 1 minute to panic and try a third time. I imagined the scene. The screen flashing invalid PIN, Kendrick sweating, his fingers shaking as he typed in 2001 trying to guess. Then the final message. Card retained. Please contact your financial institution. The machine would swallow the card. He would be left with nothing. No cash. No card. And a debt shark named Big Mike waiting for his money. 10 minutes later, I heard heavy footsteps in the hallway. They were not the footsteps of a visitor. They were the stomps of a man in a rage. Kendrick burst into the room. He did not care about the noise this time. His face was a deep shade of crimson. "You lied to me," he screamed. He threw his sunglasses on the floor. They shattered. I flinched. This time the fear was partially real. He was unhinged. "What are you talking about?" I asked, keeping my voice trembling. "The PIN." Kendrick roared. He kicked the bed frame. "The PIN was wrong. The machine ate the card. You gave me the wrong number on purpose." I clutched my chest. I widened my eyes. No. No, I didn't. 2002. That was the year. Or was it 2003? I started to cry. It was a performance I had practiced in the mirror. I am sorry, Kendrick. My head is all mixed up. I can't remember. Why are you yelling at me? Kendrick grabbed the lapels of my pajama shirt. He pulled me forward. His breath was hot on my face. Stop acting stupid, old man. I know you have money. Where is the checkbook? Where is the cash? I need $20,000 by tonight. He shook me. Tell me where the money is, or I will tear this room apart. I sobbed louder. I don't know. Skylar said she took care of everything. Ask Skylar. He shoved me back against the pillows. Useless, he spat. You are absolutely useless. He paced around the room. He pulled open the drawers of the nightstand and dumped them on the floor. My Bible, my reading glasses, my spare socks. He kicked them aside. He went to the closet and ripped through my clothes pockets. Nothing. He turned back to me. His eyes were wild. You better pray I find a way to fix this, Dad, because if I lose everything, I am leaving you here to rot. I will never visit. I will never call. You will die alone in this room and nobody will care. He pointed a finger at my face. Do not think I am joking. You are dead to me. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard that a picture frame on the wall tilted. Silence returned to room 104. I sat up slowly. I adjusted my shirt collar. I wiped the fake tears from my cheeks. I looked up at the smoke detector on the ceiling. Beside it was a tiny black dot, the lens of my hidden camera. It had recorded everything, the assault, the threat, the elder abuse. I reached for my burner phone under the mattress. I opened the app and saved the video clip. I named the file Evidence Number 3. Then I pressed the call button for the nurse. A minute later, the head nurse, Mrs. Higgins, rushed in. She looked alarmed. Mr. Turner, we heard shouting. Are you all right? I looked at her with sad, weary eyes. My son, I whispered. He was very upset. He is under a lot of pressure. I think he is having a breakdown. Mrs. Higgins saw the overturned drawers and the broken sunglasses. Her face hardened. Did he hurt you, Mr. Turner? I touched my chest where he had grabbed me. He was just shaking me. He didn't mean it. Please do not call the police. I do not want him to get in trouble. This was the final nail. By begging her not to call the police, I ensured that she would file a formal incident report. It would be on the official record of the nursing home, independent witnesses, physical evidence. Mrs. Higgins patted my hand gently. We will keep a close eye on visitors from now on, Mr. Turner. He will not be allowed back in without supervision. Thank you, I said, closing my eyes. I just want to rest now. She left the room, closing the door softly. I lay back on the pillow. The game was escalating. Kendrick was desperate now. Desperate men do reckless things. He had failed to get the cash. That meant his next move would be the house. He would try to sell it fast. He would rush the sale. He would cut corners. And that was exactly where I wanted him. He was running straight toward the notary office, and he had no idea the cliff was waiting for him. I checked my bank app on the secure folder of my phone. The notification was there. Attempted withdrawal. ATM at Shell Station on Main Street. Card retained. I smiled. Happy graduation day, son, I whispered. I turned off the phone and hit it again. I needed my rest. Tomorrow was going to be a very busy day. The buyer for the house was scheduled to meet Kendrick, my buyer. Everything was proceeding according to the manifest. The cargo was secure, the destination was set, and the storm was just beginning. The digital clock on my bedside table read 2:13 in the morning when the door to room 104 creaked open. I was awake instantly. A logistics manager learns to sleep with one ear open, especially when he is living in enemy territory. It was Kendrick. He looked worse than he had in the afternoon. His eyes were sunken and his skin had a gray pallor under the fluorescent hallway lights. He was wearing a hooded sweatshirt pulled up over his head. Get up, Dad, he whispered urgently. Get dressed. We have to go. I sat up slowly, feigning grogginess. What time is it? I asked, rubbing my eyes. Is there a fire? No fire, Kendrick hissed. He grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the edge of the bed. I need you to sign some papers. The buyer wants to meet now. He is leaving the country tomorrow morning, and this is our only chance. I knew he was lying about the buyer leaving the country. Real estate deals do not happen at 2 in the morning unless they are illegal. Kendrick had found a black market buyer, someone who needed to wash dirty money through clean property. I let him pull me up. I fumbled with my shoes, taking twice as long to tie the laces as necessary. "Hurry up," Kendrick snapped. He was bouncing on the balls of his feet. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Just a diner down the road. It is safe. Don't worry." I grabbed my jacket. Inside the inner pocket, I felt the crinkle of a single sheet of paper. I had been carrying it with me for 3 days, waiting for this exact moment. It was a duplicate of the signature page for a standard real estate contract, but the fine print was very different. We slipped out the side exit of the nursing home. The night air was thick and humid. A black sedan was waiting in the shadows, not Kendrick S. BMW. It was an older model with tinted windows. "Get in," Kendrick said, opening the back door. I slid onto the vinyl seat. The car smelled of stale cigarette smoke and pine air freshener. Kendrick got in the driver's seat and we peeled out of the parking lot. He did not speak during the drive. He kept checking the rearview mirror. I watched the city lights flicker past. We were heading toward the industrial district, an area of warehouses and truck stops I knew well from my working days. We pulled into the parking lot of a place called the Iron Skillet. It was a 24-hour diner that served truckers and insomniacs. The neon sign buzzed ominously. Inside the diner was mostly empty. A waitress with tired eyes was wiping down the counter. In the back booth, a man was waiting. He was a large man with a shaved head and a thick neck. He wore a leather jacket and expensive rings on his fingers. A heavy silver briefcase sat on the table next to his coffee. "This is him," Kendrick said, sliding into the booth. "This is my father, the owner." The man looked at me. His eyes were cold and calculating. He did not offer his hand. "Does he know what is happening?" the man asked. His voice sounded like gravel grinding together. "He knows," Kendrick said quickly. "He just wants to sell and retire." "Right, Dad." I nodded slowly, looking at the menu as if I was interested in ordering pancakes. "I just want to rest," I said. "The house is too big, too many stairs." The man grunted. He slid a thick stack of documents across the table. "Standard quitclaim deed and cash sale agreement," the man said. "No inspections, no title insurance, as is, where is. I give you $50,000 cash now as a deposit. The rest comes tomorrow when the deed is recorded. $50,000. That was the exact amount Kendrick owed to the loan sharks plus a little extra for his gambling habit. Kendrick's eyes widened when the man opened the briefcase just an inch. I saw the green glow of stacked bills. "Sign it, Dad," Kendrick said, pushing a pen into my hand. "Just sign on the last page." I put on my reading glasses. I picked up the document. "I need to read it first," I said. The man slammed his hand on the table. "We do not have time for a reading circle, old man. The terms are standard." Kendrick looked at me with panic. "Dad, please, just sign it." I pretended to be intimidated. My hand shook violently. I reached for the coffee cup the waitress had just set down in front of me. "I am sorry," I stammered. "I am just a bit nervous." I lifted the cup. My hand shook harder. "Watch out," Kendrick warned. It was too late. I jerked my wrist. The cup tipped over. Hot brown liquid splashed all over the table, soaking the tablecloth and the first few pages of the contract. "Oh my God!" Kendrick yelled, jumping up. "You clumsy old fool!" The man cursed and grabbed his briefcase, pulling it away from the spill. "Napkins!" I cried out, standing up and knocking my chair over. "Get some napkins." The waitress ran over with a towel. Kendrick was busy wiping coffee off his jeans. The man was checking his leather jacket. For exactly 4 seconds, nobody was looking at me. That was 3 seconds more than I needed. I reached into my jacket pocket. I pulled out the dry document I had prepared. With a practiced sleight of hand I learned from checking cargo manifests, I slid the wet signature page off the table and shoved it into my pocket, replacing it with my own page. It was seamless. The coffee stain on the table covered the edges. "I am so sorry," I wailed, dabbing at the mess with a napkin. "I am so sorry." "Sit down," the man barked. "The last page is dry. Just sign the damn thing so I can get out of here." Kendrick smoothed out the document. The top pages were stained but legible. The last page, the one I had just swapped, was pristine. "Sign it, Dad," Kendrick hissed, "before he changes his mind." I sat down. I picked up the pen again. This time, I did not shake. I signed my name clearly. Felix Turner. I pushed the paper toward the man. He checked the signature. He checked the date. He did not check the paragraph number at the top of the page. If he had, he would have noticed it referenced a clause about charitable donations, not a property sale. "Good," the man said. He reached into the briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope. He tossed it to Kendrick. 50,000. Do not spend it all in one place. Kendrick grabbed the envelope. He tore the corner open to check the bills. He let out a breath he had been holding for days. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you. You will get the keys tomorrow." The man stood up, taking the signed papers. "I better. If I find out you are playing games, you will wish you were in that nursing home with your daddy." The man walked out of the diner. We watched his car drive away. Kendrick slumped against the booth. He clutched the envelope to his chest like a newborn baby. "We did it," he whispered. "We actually did it." He looked at me. For a second, I thought he might thank me. I thought he might offer to buy me breakfast with his new fortune. "Let us go," he said, standing up. "I need to drop you back before the morning shift starts." We drove back to the nursing home in silence. Kendrick was humming a tune. He was already spending the money in his head. He was thinking about paying off Big Mike. He was thinking about buying Skylar a gift to make her stop screaming. He pulled up to the side entrance. "Get out, Dad," Kendrick said. I opened the door. "Kendrick," I said, pausing. "Are you happy now?" He patted the pocket where the money was. "I am relieved, Dad. You wouldn't understand. Business is complicated." He did not know how complicated it was about to get. I watched him drive away. The taillights of the black sedan faded into the darkness. I walked back to room 104. I took off my jacket and removed the coffee-stained page from my pocket. I tore it into tiny pieces and flushed it down the toilet. Then I took out my burner phone. I sent a text to Rothstein. "The bait is taken. He has the cash. The buyer has the dummy contract." Rothstein replied instantly. "Did he read the fine print?" I smiled at the screen. Nobody reads the fine print anymore. The document I had signed was not a sale agreement. It was a donation acknowledgement form for the Inner City Youth Center. The man who just gave Kendrick $50,000 now held a piece of paper that legally proved he had donated that money to charity in my name. When he tried to file that deed tomorrow, the clerk would laugh at him. And when he came looking for his money, Kendrick would have to explain why he sold a house he did not own to a criminal who did not like jokes. I climbed back into bed. The sheets were cold, but I felt warm. Kendrick thought he had won $50,000. In reality, he had just sold his life for an envelope of cash that would turn into a death warrant the moment the sun came up. I closed my eyes. I needed to sleep. Tomorrow I had a meeting with the notary, and I wanted to look my best when the hammer finally fell. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of room 104, but I was not looking at the light. I was looking at the screen of my tablet. I had upgraded my surveillance package to include audio feeds from Kendrick's phone. He had installed a tracking app for me months ago, thinking he was keeping tabs on a senile old man. He never realized that the administrator account gave me access to his microphone, too. I put on my headphones and took a sip of the lukewarm nursing home coffee. It tasted like battery acid, but today it felt like champagne. I closed my eyes and transported myself to the other side of town, to the plush, air-conditioned office of Perkins & Associates, the most expensive notary firm in Atlanta. I could hear the hum of the ventilation system. I could hear the nervous tapping of a shoe against a hardwood floor. That was Kendrick. I could hear the rustle of silk. That was Skylar. And I could hear the heavy breathing of a man who smokes too much and has no patience. That was the buyer, the man from the diner. The audio feed was crisp. I could hear Skylar whisper to Kendrick. "Stop shaking," she hissed. "You are sweating through your shirt. It is disgusting." "I am just anxious," Kendrick whispered back. "Once we sign, I will be fine. Did you bring the ring?" Skylar giggled, a sound that made my stomach turn. "Of course I did. It is on my finger. Look at it sparkle. $10,000 well spent. You finally did something right, Kendrick." I smiled in my hospital bed. $10,000. That was 20% of the deposit the buyer had given them last night. Kendrick had spent the money before the ink was even dry on the real deed. He was digging his grave with a diamond shovel. "All right, gentlemen and ma'am," a new voice entered the feed. It was Ms. Perkins. I had known Ms. Perkins for 20 years. She was the one who helped me set up the educational fund for Kendrick when he was born. She was a woman of steel and statutes. She knew exactly what to do. Please take a seat, Ms. Perkins said. Her voice was professional and devoid of warmth. I have the file right here. I heard the sound of leather chairs creaking as they sat down. Let us get this over with, the buyer grumbled. I have a flight to catch. Here is the rest of the cash. A heavy thud echoed on the desk. That was the briefcase. Another $100,000 or whatever lowball price Kendrick had agreed to. Hold on, sir, Ms. Perkins said. I cannot accept any funds until I verify the title status. It is standard procedure. Verify away, Kendrick said quickly. My father signed the quitclaim deed last night. I have it right here. I heard the crinkle of paper. That was the document I had swapped in the diner, the one that was actually a donation form. Ms. Perkins hummed. I see, she said. The signature looks authentic. It is authentic, Kendrick said. I watched him sign it. I am sure you did, Ms. Perkins said. She began typing on her keyboard. The sound of the keys clacking was rhythmic. Click, clack, click, clack. To Kendrick and Schuyler, it was just typing. To me, it was the sound of the executioner sharpening the blade. I sat perfectly still in my room. This was the payoff. This was the moment the trap snapped shut. The typing stopped. Silence filled the room. It was a heavy, thick silence. Is there a problem? The buyer asked. His voice dropped an octave. Ms. Perkins cleared her throat. Mr. Turner, she said, addressing Kendrick. There seems to be a discrepancy in the county database. What discrepancy? Schuyler demanded. We have the paper right there. The paper is just a piece of paper, Mrs. Turner, Ms. Perkins replied calmly. The digital record is what matters. And according to the Fulton County Deed Registry, this property is not owned by Felix Turner. Kendrick laughed. It was a nervous, high-pitched sound. That is impossible. My dad has owned that house for 40 years. He paid off the mortgage in '98. He did own it, Ms. Perkins corrected, past tense. But the property was transferred 72 hours ago. Transferred, Schuyler shrieked. To who? Who did he sell it to? He did not sell it, Ms. Perkins said. She sounded like she was reading a weather report. He donated it. The entire property, along with all contents and fixtures, was transferred into an irrevocable trust. The Esther Turner Memorial Trust. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. Esther, my beautiful wife. Even in death, she was protecting our home. That is a lie, Kendrick shouted. He stood up. I heard his chair scrape violently against the floor. He is senile. He does not even know what day it is. He could not have set up a trust. The paperwork was filed by the law firm of Rothstein and Associates, Ms. Perkins said. It is watertight, Mr. Turner. The beneficiary is the Atlanta Youth Shelter. As of 3 days ago, you have been squatting on charity property. No, Schuyler screamed. No. We already spent the money. We already ordered the furniture. You fix this. You fix this right now, you incompetent witch. Ms. Perkins did not flinch. I suggest you lower your voice, ma'am, or I will call security. There is nothing to fix. The house is gone. The title is locked. Then the buyer spoke. His voice was very quiet. It was the kind of quiet that happens before a gunshot. So the buyer said, Let me understand this. You sold me a house you do not own. Kendrick stammered. His voice was trembling so hard I could barely understand him. No. No, Vince, listen. It is a mistake. My dad, he is crazy. He played a trick. I will fix it, I promise. You took $50,000 of my money last night, the buyer continued. As a deposit. I will give it back, Kendrick cried. I will give it all back. Just give me the envelope. He reached for the briefcase on the desk, but the buyer grabbed his wrist. I could hear the impact of flesh hitting flesh. Kendrick yelped. I want my $50,000, the buyer said, plus interest for wasting my time. I want it now. Kendrick was hyperventilating. Okay. I have $40,000 in the bag at home. And he stopped. He remembered the ring and what the buyer asked. Schuyler, the buyer said. Give me the ring. What Schuyler said. Her voice was icy. The ring, Kendrick pleaded. The diamond. We have to give it to him. It is worth $10,000. It covers the rest. Are you insane? Schuyler yelled. This is my ring. You promised me this ring. You are not giving him my jewelry because you messed up a contract. Give him the ring, Schuyler, Kendrick screamed. He is going to kill me. I do not care, Schuyler shouted back. Figure it out. You are the man. Be a man for once in your life. The buyer laughed. It was a dark, dry laugh. Domestic bliss, he mocked. I am not a pawn shop. I do not want a ring. I want my cash. 50,000. You have 1 hour. Kendrick was sobbing now. I cannot. I do not have it. Dad has money. I will call Dad. He will fix it. He has to fix it. I watched the screen of my burner phone light up. Incoming video call. Kendrick. I adjusted my reading glasses. I looked at the chessboard I had set up on my bedside table. I was playing a game against myself. White was winning. I swiped the green button. Dad Kendrick's face filled the screen. He was a mess. Sweat was dripping down his forehead. His eyes were wide with terror. Behind him I could see the blurry outline of the notary office and the large figure of the buyer blocking the door. Dad, thank God, Kendrick gasped. There has been a mistake. The notary says the house is gone. She says it is in a trust. You have to tell them. Tell them it is a mistake. Tell them you want to sell it to Vince. I looked at the camera. I did not look confused. I did not look old. I looked him straight in the eyes. Hello, son, I said calmly. I picked up a white bishop piece from the board. Dad, stop playing games, Kendrick screamed. Vince is here. He has a gun. He wants his money back. The deposit money. The deposit, I asked slowly. Ah, yes. The $50,000 you accepted last night. Yes, Kendrick cried. I need you to transfer me $50,000 right now, or sign the house over. Please, Dad. He is going to hurt me. I inspected the chess piece in my hand. I cannot transfer money I do not have. Son, I said. My accounts are closed, remember? You tried to access them yesterday. Then sell the house, Kendrick begged. Just sign the paper. The house belongs to your mother now, I said. It is a shelter for children who have no homes. I cannot sell what belongs to the angels. Skylar's face appeared in the frame. She shoved Kendrick aside. Listen to me, you old bat, Skylar hissed. Her makeup was running. Cancel the trust, right now, or I swear I will come down there and smother you with your own pillow. I chuckled. That sounds like a threat, Skylar. I hope Ms. Perkins is recording this. She is. Ms. Perkins' voice came from the background. The police have been notified of the disturbance. Skylar turned pale. Dad Kendrick pushed back into the frame. Please. I spent the money. I spent $10,000 on a ring. I cannot pay him back. He is going to take me. I looked at my son. I remembered teaching him to ride a bike. I remembered paying for his first car. I remembered bailing him out of jail when he was 20. Every time I fixed his mistakes, he learned nothing. He only learned that Daddy would always be there with a checkbook. Not this time. You spent money that was not yours on a woman who despises you, I said. That is a bad investment, son. Dad. Please, Kendrick whispered. His voice broke. I looked at the buyer who was standing behind Kendrick. He was watching the screen. Sir, I said, addressing the criminal, my son seems to have defrauded you. I suggest you take whatever assets he has on his person. I believe the ring on the lady's finger is high quality. No, Skylar screamed, clutching her hand to her chest. The buyer smirked. He looked at Skylar's hand. Dad, what are you doing? Kendrick gasped. I am teaching you a lesson about logistics, Kendrick, I said. When you ship a package to the wrong address, you have to pay the return shipping fee. I moved the bishop on my board. I knocked over the black king. Checkmate, I whispered. I hung up the phone. The screen went black, but I could still hear the audio feed for a few more seconds before the connection was cut. I heard Skylar scream as someone grabbed her hand. I heard Kendrick crying. I heard the buyer say, "Come with me. We are going for a ride." Then silence. I took off my headphones. My hands were steady. My heart rate was normal. I picked up my cold coffee and finished it. It was done. The house was safe. The charity would take possession tomorrow. Kendrick was now in the hands of a man who would extract every penny he owed through labor or pain. Skylar was about to lose her prized diamond and her dignity. I looked out the window of the nursing home. The sky was gray, but to me it looked bright blue. I was alone in a room with peeling paint, but I had never felt more at home. But the game was not over. Skylar was a survivor. She was a cockroach. She would survive the buyer. She would divorce Kendrick. And then she would come for me with everything she had left. I reached for my phone and dialed Rothstein. Phase 1 is complete, I said. Prepare for the lawsuit. She is going to try to prove I am incompetent. Let her try. Rothstein laughed. We have the medical records ready. I lay back on the bed. I needed to rest. The next battle would not be fought with money or muscle. It would be fought in a courtroom. And I had one more trap waiting for my dear daughter-in-law. A trap made of her own vanity. I closed my eyes and waited for the war to come to me. The audio feed from the notary office had cut out, but I did not need a microphone to know what Skylar was feeling. I knew her better than she knew herself. She defined her existence by the objects she possessed, the designer handbags, the German car, the address and the right zip code, and most importantly, the ring. That ring was her shield. It was her proof that she was better than the waitresses she yelled at and the clerks she ignored. Losing it to a common thug in a cheap suit was not just a financial loss, it was an amputation of her ego. I sat in my room at the nursing home and switched my tablet to the exterior cameras of my old house. I knew she was heading there. She needed to break something. She needed to exert power over the only thing left in her grasp, my home. I checked the time. It would take her 20 minutes to drive from the notary office to the house if she followed the speed limit. Knowing Skylar, she would make it in 12. I picked up my burner phone and dialed a number I had not called in years. "Arthur," I said. "The storm is coming." I heard a deep chuckle on the other end. "We are ready, Felix. The perimeter is secure. The boys are looking forward to a little excitement." Bingo night was getting boring anyway. Arthur was my old platoon sergeant from Vietnam. He ran a private security firm now staffed entirely by retired veterans. They were old men with gray hair and stiff knees, but they were disciplined. They were loyal. And unlike the security guards at the mall, they did not panic. "Hold the line, Arthur," I said. "Do not engage unless she attacks. Let her dig her own hole." "Understood." Out. I hung up and watched the screen. 10 minutes later, a silver Mercedes screeched around the corner. Skylar. She drove over the curb and parked on the perfectly manicured lawn, leaving deep tire tracks in the grass I had tended for decades. She did not care. She jumped out of the car. She looked like a banshee. Her hair was disheveled. Her mascara was smeared down her cheeks. She was not wearing the ring. Her left hand looked naked and claw-like as she clenched it into a fist. She marched toward the front door. She was muttering to herself. The high-sensitivity microphone above the porch picked it up. "Stupid old man. Stupid husband. I will burn it down. I will burn it all down." She reached into her purse and pulled out her key ring. She jammed the key into the lock. It did not turn. She tried again, twisting it hard. It did not budge. I had changed the locks 2 days ago. The old brass deadbolt was gone. In its place was a biometric smart lock reinforced with a steel strike plate. It only opened for my fingerprint or Arthur S. master code. Skylar rattled the door handle. She kicked the wood. "Open," she screamed. "Open, you piece of junk!" She stepped back, breathing heavily. She looked around for a rock or a brick. She spotted a garden gnome near the flower bed. She grabbed it, raising it over her head to smash the glass panel on the door. That was when Arthur stepped out from the side of the house. He was wearing a dark blue uniform with a badge that said Private Security. He stood 6 feet 4 inches tall. His face was weathered like old leather, but his eyes were sharp. Behind him, 2 other men stepped out, Big Tiny and Mac. Both of them looked like they could wrestle a bear and win. "Put the gnome down, ma'am," Arthur said. His voice was calm. It was the voice of a man who had commanded troops under fire. Skylar spun around. She almost dropped the ceramic statue. "Who are you?" she screeched. "Get off my property." Arthur did not move. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back. "This is not your property, ma'am. This property belongs to the Esther Turner Memorial Trust. We have been hired to secure the premises against trespassers." "Trespassers?" Skylar laughed. It was a manic sound. "I live here. My husband owns this house. I want you gone. I want you gone right now, or I will have you arrested." "I am afraid that is incorrect," Arthur said. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "We have a copy of the deed and a restraining order barring any unauthorized entry. You are not on the list." Skylar threw the gnome. It smashed against the pavement, shattering into 100 pieces. "I do not care about your list," she yelled. She marched up to Arthur, getting right in his face. She poked a finger into his chest. "Do you know who I am? Do you have any idea who you are messing with? I will sue you. I will take your pension. I will have your job. Get out of my way." She tried to push past him to get to the door. Arthur did not budge. He was a stone wall. He simply stepped sideways, blocking her path again. "Please step back, ma'am," Arthur said. "This is your final warning." Skylar lost it. The humiliation of the morning, the loss of the diamond, the heat of the day, it all boiled over. "Move!" she screamed. She pulled back her hand and slapped Arthur across the face. The sound was sharp and loud. I watched on the screen. My heart rate spiked. This was it. This was the crossing of the line. Arthur did not flinch. He did not retaliate. He slowly turned his head back to face her. His expression had not changed. "That is assault, ma'am," he said. He signaled to Mac. "Call it in." Skylar looked at her hand. She seemed surprised by what she had done, but she did not apologize. She doubled down. "Do not touch me," she hissed. "You deserved it. You are just a hired thug." 2 minutes later, a police cruiser turned onto the street. I had told Arthur to have the police on standby nearby. 2 uniformed officers stepped out. They saw the broken gnome. They saw the tire tracks on the lawn. They saw Skylar screaming at 3 elderly veterans. "Is there a problem here, gentlemen?" one officer asked, walking up the driveway. Arthur touched his cheek where a red mark was forming. "This woman is trespassing, officer. When asked to leave, she became violent. She assaulted me. My colleagues witnessed it, and we have it on video." He pointed to the body camera on his chest. Skylar's face went white. She realized too late that she was not dealing with a senile old man anymore. She was dealing with professionals. "He pushed me." Skylar lied immediately. She put on her victim voice. "He threatened me. I was just defending myself." The officer looked at Arthur. Then he looked at Skylar. "Ma'am, I need to see your ID. I live here," Skylar insisted. "Ask anyone." The officer checked his tablet. "According to this, the resident is Felix Turner. Are you Felix Turner?" "No, he is my father-in-law. He is in a home." "Then you do not live here," the officer said, "and you just assaulted a licensed security guard. Turn around and place your hands behind your back." They did not arrest her. Not yet. I had instructed Arthur to press for a citation, not a booking. I wanted her out on the street. I wanted her desperate. The officer wrote her a ticket for trespassing and disorderly conduct. He gave her a court summons for the assault. "If you return to this property, you will be taken to jail. Do you understand?" the officer said, handing her the yellow slip. Skylar snatched the ticket. She looked at the neighbors who had gathered on their porches to watch. She saw Mrs. Gable pointing. She saw Mr. Henderson shaking his head. Her reputation in the neighborhood was shattered. The facade of the wealthy, successful couple was gone. Now she was just the crazy woman yelling at the police. She got back into her Mercedes. She slammed the door. She reversed out of the driveway, hitting the mailbox on her way out. I watched her drive away. Arthur looked up at the security camera and gave a small salute. "Thank you, my friend," I whispered. Skylar drove for 2 blocks before pulling over into a grocery store parking lot. I switched to the audio feed from her car. She was hyperventilating. She hit the steering wheel over and over again. "Damn him," she screamed. "Damn him to hell." She grabbed her phone. She dialed Kendrick. Kendrick picked up on the first ring. He sounded weak. "Sky," he croaked. "Where are you?" "Where am I?" Skylar yelled. "I am in hell, Kendrick. That is where I am. I just got kicked off the property. Your father hired mercenaries. They humiliated me." "Mercenaries?" Kendrick asked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Do not play dumb," she snapped. "He planned this. He planned it all. The trust, the locks, the guards. He knew." She paused. She took a breath. Her voice changed. It became cold and hard like steel. "Where are you?" she asked. "I am walking," Kendrick said. "Vince took the car. He took the watch. He took everything. He dropped me off on the highway. I am walking home." "Well, do not bother coming home," Skylar said, "because we do not have a home anymore." "Sky, please," Kendrick sobbed. "I am hurt. He hit me. I need you to pick me up." "I am not picking you up," Skylar said. "I am going to a hotel, and you are going to fix this." How Kendrick cried. "I have nothing." "I do not care," Skylar said. "You are going to go to that nursing home. You are going to get on your knees, and you are going to make that old man sign the revocation papers. You are going to cry, you are going to beg, you are going to threaten him. I do not care what you do." She looked at her empty ring finger again. "Listen to me, Kendrick. If you do not get that house back by tomorrow morning, do not bother calling me. I will file for divorce. I will sue you for spousal support. I will tell everyone about your gambling. I will ruin you." "Sky, wait." "Fix it," Skylar said, "or we are done." She hung up the phone. I sat back in my bed. The ultimatum had been delivered. Skylar had abandoned him. She had stripped him of his support system just when he was at his lowest. Kendrick was alone. He was walking on the side of a highway, bruised and beaten. He had no car, no money, no wife, and no home. Desperation is a dangerous fuel. It makes men do things they would never consider in their right minds. Kendrick was cornered, and a cornered rat does not surrender. It attacks. I knew he was coming for me. He would not come with papers this time. He would not come with a smile. He would come with violence. I needed to be ready. I reached for my phone and opened the banking app. I transferred $5,000 to Arthur S. Company account, a bonus for a job well done. Then I opened my messages. I found the thread with the local police captain. Captain, verify the location of Kendrick Turner. He is on foot on Highway 85. He is likely heading toward Greenwood Nursing Home. He is unstable. I sent the message. I did not want the police to stop him. Not yet. I wanted him to arrive. I wanted him to break in. I needed him to commit the final crime that would put him away for good. I looked at the window. The sun was setting. The shadows were lengthening in room 104. Come on, son, I whispered. Come and show me who you really are. I turned off the lights and sat in the dark, waiting for the sound of breaking glass. The final act was about to begin. The sun had set hours ago and the nursing home was quiet, but I was wide awake. The glow of my tablet illuminated my face in the dark room. I was watching a silent movie of my own direction. The set was my former home. The star was my desperate son, and the genre was a tragedy. I knew he was coming. A man does not walk away from a $50,000 debt to a violent criminal without trying to find a lifeline. Kendrick had no lifeline left except for a memory. He remembered the gold bar. It was a single kilogram of solid gold. I had bought it 30 years ago as a hedge against inflation. I kept it in the wall safe behind the painting of the ship in my study. Kendrick knew it was there. He used to stare at it when he was a boy, asking if it was pirate treasure. I told him it was for emergencies. He decided that tonight was an emergency. I checked the time. 11:40 at night. The perimeter sensors on the north side of the house turned red on my screen. He was here. I switched the camera feed to the backyard. The night vision turned everything into shades of green and black. I saw a figure moving through the azalea bushes. He was moving clumsily. He tripped over a garden hose and scrambled back up, looking around wildly. It was Kendrick. He looked like a ghost. He was still wearing the same clothes from the notary office, but now they were stained with sweat and dirt. He had walked 10 miles along the highway to get here. Desperation is a powerful engine. He crept toward the basement window. It was the small window behind the dryer. When he was a teenager, he used to sneak out of that window to go to parties. He thought I never knew. I always knew. I just wanted him to have his freedom. Now he was using that same window to steal mine. He pushed on the glass. It slid open easily. I took a sip of water. I had unlocked that window myself before I left the house 3 days ago. I knew that if he ever came back to rob me, that would be his entry point. It was the path of least resistance. In logistics, we call this a funnel. You guide the cargo exactly where you want it to go. Kendrick slid feet first into the basement. I switched cameras to the laundry room. He landed on a pile of dirty towels I had left there. He froze, listening for sounds. He did not know that the moment his feet touched the floor, a silent alarm had been triggered. It did not ring in the house. It rang at the police station and on Arthur S.'s phone. I typed a quick message to the captain. Intruder confirmed. Do not engage yet. Let him reach the second floor. I want him to feel safe before the net closes. Kendrick pulled a flashlight from his pocket. The beam cut through the darkness. He moved up the basement stairs. The wooden steps creaked. I knew exactly which step squeaked. The third one from the top. Creak. Kendrick stopped breathing. He waited. The house was silent. He pushed open the door to the kitchen. He shined his light around. The kitchen was empty. The counters were bare. He did not look at the table where he used to eat breakfast before school. He did not look at the height chart carved into the door frame. He only looked for obstacles. He moved into the hallway. He passed the living room where Skylar had ordered the fireplace destroyed. The rubble was still there. Kendrick stepped over a piece of broken stone. He did not care. He had tunnel vision. He headed for the stairs. He was going to the study. I watched him climb. He was panting. The sound was picked up by the hallway microphones. It was a wet, ragged sound. He was crying. I am sorry, Dad, he whispered to the empty air. I have to do this. Vince is going to cut my fingers off. I have to pay him. I will pay you back, I swear. He was lying to himself. He would never pay me back. He would take the gold, give it to the shark, and then come back for the silverware. Then the copper wiring in the walls. A parasite does not stop until the host is dry. He reached the study. He pushed the door open. The room smelled of old paper and leather tobacco. My sanctuary. Kendrick walked straight to the painting of the ship. It was a painting of the first cargo vessel I ever managed. He grabbed the frame and ripped it off the wall, throwing it onto the floor. Behind it was the steel face of the wall safe. Kendrick fell to his knees in front of it. He was shaking so hard the flashlight beam danced on the metal. "Okay," he muttered. "Okay. Think. What is the code?" He reached for the keypad. He typed in 4 numbers. Beep, 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 beep. Red light. Error. He typed in his own birthday. October 14th. Red light. Error. Stupid, he cursed. Stupid old man. He typed in Skylar S. birthday. Red light. Error. He hit the safe with his fist. Think, Kendrick, think. What would he use? He typed in the year I bought the house. 1982. Red light. Error. He let out a scream of frustration. He rested his forehead against the cold steel of the safe. "Please," he begged. "Please open. I do not want to die." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small pry bar he must have stolen from a hardware store on his walk here. He jammed it into the crack of the door. He was going to try to force it open. He pulled with all his strength. His face turned purple. The safe door popped open with a click. He fell back surprised. He dropped the pry bar. It was not his strength that opened it. I had left the locking mechanism disengaged. The bolts were retracted. The door was just resting on the latch. Kendrick laughed. It was a hysterical, broken laugh. "You forgot to lock it," he gasped. "You senile old fool. You forgot to lock the safe." He scrambled forward. He reached into the dark cavity of the safe. His hands were ready to feel the heavy, cold weight of the gold bar. His hand grasped nothing but air. He shined the flashlight inside. The safe was empty. No gold, no cash, no documents. The gold bar was currently sitting in a safety deposit box at the bank downtown where I had moved it a week ago. There was only one thing in the safe. A small white index card propped up in the center. Kendrick grabbed the card. He brought it close to his face. I zoomed in with the camera. I knew what it said. I had written it myself with my best fountain pen. Kendrick read the words out loud. His voice trembled. "The combination was your mother's birthday. Too bad you never remembered it." He stared at the card. "My mother's birthday," he whispered. May 3rd. He had missed it every year. Every single year for 20 years he forgot. He would call a week late saying he was busy. Or he would send a text message with a generic emoji. He never sent a card. He never sent flowers. He crumbled the note in his hand. "No," he wailed. "No. Where is the gold?" He started banging his head against the open door of the safe. "It is not fair. It is mine. It is my inheritance." Suddenly the room was flooded with blinding white light. Kendrick froze. He covered his eyes. A voice boomed from a megaphone outside the window. "Kendrick Turner, this is the Atlanta Police Department. The house is surrounded. Come out with your hands up." Kendrick scrambled to the window. He looked out. Red and blue lights flashed against the trees. There were 3 squad cars in the driveway. Officers were positioned behind the doors with their weapons drawn. He ran to the door of the study. "Do not move," a voice shouted from the hallway. Arthur stood at the top of the stairs. He was holding a taser. Behind him were 2 police officers. "It is over," son Arthur said. "Put your hands on your head." Kendrick looked at Arthur. Then he looked at the empty safe. Then he looked at the crumbled note in his hand. He collapsed. He did not fight. He did not run. He just sank to the floor and curled into a ball. He sobbed like a child who had lost his mother in a crowd. But his mother was gone and his father was watching him from a screen 5 miles away. The officers moved in. They pulled him up. They cuffed his hands behind his back. "You have the right to remain silent," the officer recited. Kendrick did not remain silent. He looked up at the ceiling as if he knew I was there. "Dad," he screamed. "Dad, help me. Tell them it is okay. Tell them I am allowed to be here." I watched him on my screen. My finger hovered over the microphone button. I could speak to him. I could tell the police to let him go. I could end this right now. I thought about the nursing home. I thought about the signature he forced out of me. I thought about Skylar wearing the pearls. I thought about the look on his face when he thought he had sold my home to a criminal. I did not press the button. I watched as they marched him down the stairs. I watched as they led him out the front door past the broken gnome and the tire tracks. They pushed him into the back of a squad car. The heavy door slammed shut. The flashing lights illuminated his face through the window one last time. He looked broken. He looked terrified, but for the first time in his life he also looked responsible for his own actions. The cars drove away. The sirens faded into the distance. Arthur stayed behind. He walked through the house, checking the rooms. He walked into the study and picked up the crumbled note from the floor. He smoothed it out and placed it back in the safe. Then he looked up at the camera and nodded. "Secure," he mouthed. I turned off the tablet. The room in the nursing home was dark again. I lay back on my pillow. I should have felt sad. A father should feel sad when his son goes to jail. But I did not feel sad. I felt a strange sense of order. In logistics, when a shipment is corrupted, when the cargo is rotten, you do not ship it. You quarantine it. You remove it from the supply chain so it does not infect the rest of the fleet. Kendrick was in quarantine now. He was safe from the loan sharks. He was safe from himself. And I was safe from him. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in a week I fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. But the war was not over. Skylar was still out there. And unlike Kendrick, she was not broken. She was angry. And she had a lawyer who specialized in destroying old men like me. The next morning I would wake up to a lawsuit. But tonight I slept with the peace of a man who had protected his castle. The visitation room at the Fulton County Jail smelled of industrial cleaner and stale fear. It was a smell I knew well from my days working on the docks, where desperate men often found themselves on the wrong side of the law. But today I was not a logistics manager dealing with a wayward employee. I was a father visiting his only child. I sat on the cold metal stool. The glass partition between us was thick and scratched. It separated my world of freedom from his world of consequences. The heavy steel door on the other side buzzed open. Kendrick shuffled in. He looked terrible. In just 72 hours, the swagger of the real estate mogul was gone. The designer suit was replaced by a bright orange jumpsuit that hung off his frame like a tent. His hair was greasy. His face was covered in stubble. There was a dark bruise on his cheekbone, likely a welcome gift from a cellmate or a guard. He sat down heavily. He picked up the black phone receiver. His hands were shaking so bad he almost dropped it. I picked up my receiver. "Dad," he choked out. His voice was tinny through the speaker. "Dad, thank God. You came. You have to get me out. You have to post bail." I looked at him. I did not see the 35-year-old man. I saw the boy who used to scrape his knees and run to me for a bandage. I saw the teenager who crashed his first car and begged me not to tell his mother. I saw a lifetime of mistakes that I had quietly fixed with a checkbook or a phone call. But my checkbook was closed, and the phone line was dead. "How are you treating the other inmates, son?" I asked calmly. "I hope you are being polite." "Dad, stop," Kendrick hissed. He looked around nervously. "This place is hell. There are animals in here. I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. The lawyer said bail is set at $50,000. You have that. I know you have that. Just pay it. I will work it off, I promise." I leaned forward. The glass was cold against my forehead. "You promise," I repeated. "That is a word you use often, Kendrick. It is a currency you have devalued until it is worth less than the toilet paper in your cell." "Dad, please," he sobbed. "I am sorry about the safe. I am sorry about the house. I was desperate. Skylar made me do it." "Skylar is not here," I said. "You are here. You broke the window. You cracked the safe. You held the pry bar." I watched a tear slide down his cheek. It cut a clean path through the grime on his face. "I know I messed up," he whispered, "but I am your son. You cannot leave me in here. Mom would never leave me in here." I stiffened. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles turned white. "Do not say her name," I said. My voice was low, but it was sharp enough to cut glass. "Do not you dare speak about your mother." Kendrick recoiled. He looked confused. "Why, Dad?" "She loved me. She would forgive me." That was the moment I decided to open the box. The box I had kept locked in the deepest corner of my heart for 5 years. The box that contained the ugly truth about the night Esther died. I looked him in the eye. I needed him to hear this. I needed him to understand that my coldness was not sudden. It was a glacier that had been forming for half a decade. "Do you remember the night she passed?" I asked. Kendrick blinked. Of course. It was raining. I was stuck in traffic on I-85. There was a pileup. I got there 10 minutes too late. I nodded slowly. "That is the story you told me. You burst into the hospital room crying. You held her cold hand. You screamed that you tried to get there. You said the highway was a parking lot." "It was," Kendrick said. His eyes shifted to the left. "Why are we talking about this?" "Because I am a logistics manager, Kendrick," I said. "I track movement. I verify routes. That night after the undertaker took your mother away, I sat in the hospital waiting room. I could not sleep. So I checked the traffic reports for I-85. Kendrick stopped breathing. There was no accident, I continued. There was no pileup. The highway was clear. Green lights all the way from your apartment to the hospital. Kendrick swallowed hard. Maybe I took a different route, he stammered. Maybe it was surface streets. I checked those too, I said. But then I checked something else. I checked the activity on the joint credit card I gave you for emergencies. Kendrick's face turned the color of ash. At 9:30 p.m., while your mother was taking her last breaths, the card was swiped, I said. It was not swiped at a gas station. It was not swiped at a pharmacy. It was swiped at the Diamond Club Casino. Silence. Absolute heavy silence. You were not stuck in traffic, I whispered. You were at a blackjack table. You were doubling down on a pair of tens while your mother was calling out your name. Kendrick looked down at the metal counter. He could not look at me. I was winning, he whispered. It was so faint I almost missed it. I was up 2,000. I thought if I played one more hand I could pay for her treatment. I wanted to help. You wanted to gamble, I corrected him. And when you lost, you looked at your watch and realized she was probably gone. So you drove to the hospital and you performed the greatest acting role of your life. You cried, you wailed, and I stood there and hugged you. I took a deep breath. The anger in my chest was hot, but my voice remained cold. I knew Kendrick. I knew right then, but I did not say anything. We had just lost her. I did not want to lose you too, so I swallowed the lie. I let it poison me for 5 years. I waited for you to change. I waited for you to become the man she thought you were. I leaned back. But you never changed. You just found a new woman to enable you. And now you are here. Kendrick was crying openly now, ugly sobbing. I am sorry, Dad. I am so sorry. I was sick. I have a problem. Yes, you do, I said. And problems have consequences. I stood up. My knees popped. I felt old. But I also felt light. The secret was out. The burden was gone. So are you going to bail me out? Kendrick asked, wiping his nose on his sleeve. Please, Dad. I cannot stay here. I looked at the exit sign above the door. No, I said. Kendrick's jaw dropped. What? But you said you forgave me. You said you didn't want to lose me. I do not want to lose you, I said. That is exactly why I am leaving you here. I pointed to the wall behind me. Out there is a man named Vince, or Big Mike, or whatever he calls himself today. He wants $50,000. He does not want an apology. He wants his money, or he wants a pound of flesh. Kendrick shivered. If I bail you out today, I continued, Vince will find you by tonight. He will be waiting in the parking lot. He will put you in a trunk, and I will never see you again. I placed my hand on the glass. In here you are safe, son. The food is terrible, the bed is hard, but the walls are thick. Vince cannot get to you in here. The state of Georgia is providing you with 24-hour security. Kendrick stared at me. The realization washed over him. I was not punishing him. I was hiding him. But I will be here for months, he whispered. Maybe years. Then use the time I said. Get clean. Read a book. Learn a trade. Become someone your mother would recognize. I hung up the phone receiver. Dad, wait, Kendrick shouted, pounding on the glass. Do not leave me. Please. I did not pick up the phone again. I looked at him one last time. I memorized his face. It was the face of a man who had finally hit rock bottom. And rock bottom is the only solid foundation to build on. I turned my back on him. I walked toward the heavy steel door. I could hear his muffled screams through the glass. Dad! Dad! I pushed the buzzer. The guard opened the door. I walked out of the visitation room and down the long gray corridor. I walked out of the jail and into the bright sunlight of the parking lot. I took a deep breath of fresh air. It was done. My son was safe in the only way he could be. But my work was not finished. I pulled my burner phone from my pocket. There was a missed call from Rothstein and a text message. It was a screenshot of a legal filing. Skylar Vance versus Felix Turner. Civil suit for damages and guardianship. She had filed. She was coming for me. She wanted to prove I was mentally incompetent so she could annul the trust and take the house back. She did not know that Kendrick was in jail. She did not know that her pawn was off the board. She was attacking a king thinking he was unprotected. I walked to my car. It was an old sedan, reliable and unassuming, just like me. I got in and started the engine. "You want a war, Skylar?" I said to the empty car. I put the car in gear. "Then let us go to court." I drove away from the jail, leaving my son behind to face his demons while I went to face mine. The courtroom was a different kind of cage, but I had the key. I had the truth. And the truth is the only weapon that never runs out of ammunition. The ride back from the county jail was quiet. I drove my old sedan with the windows down, letting the humid Georgia air fill the cabin. I should have felt relieved. My son was safe behind bars. He was away from the loan sharks. He was away from the gambling tables. He was away from the temptations that had turned his soul into a ledger of debts. But as I pulled into the parking lot of the nursing home, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. A logistics manager develops a sixth sense for trouble. You learn to feel when a shipment is about to be hijacked. You learn to sense when a storm is brewing on the horizon before the first drop of rain falls. There was a man standing next to the entrance of the nursing home. He was not a nurse. He was not a visitor. He wore a suit that was too tight and shoes that were too shiny. He was holding a large manila envelope. I turned off the engine. I knew exactly who he was. "Mr. Felix Turner," the man asked as I approached the door. He did not smile. He did not offer his hand. "I am Felix Turner," I said. "You have been served." He thrust the envelope into my chest. I took it. It felt heavy. It felt like a brick. The man turned and walked away. He got into a nondescript sedan and drove off. He was just the messenger. The real enemy was the person who paid for the stamp. I walked into room 104. I sat on the edge of my bed. I did not open the envelope immediately. I made myself a cup of tea using the hot plate I was not supposed to have. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to be ready. I slit the envelope open with my thumb. I pulled out a stack of legal documents. They were thick and bound with a heavy staple. Civil Action Number 492, Fulton County Superior Court, Plaintiff Skylar Vance, Defendant Felix Turner. I put on my reading glasses. I began to read. The words were precise. They were calculated. They were vicious. The plaintiff alleges that the defendant suffers from advanced cognitive decline, dementia, and paranoia. The plaintiff asserts that the defendant lacks the mental capacity to enter into legal contracts or manage financial assets. The plaintiff claims that the defendant was coerced or manipulated into transferring the property located at 12 Oak Street into the Esther Turner Memorial Trust. I turned the page. The plaintiff petitions the court for an emergency injunction to freeze all assets of the defendant. The plaintiff further petitions the court to appoint Skylar Vance as the legal guardian and conservator of Felix Turner to manage his affairs for his own protection. I lowered the papers. My hand was trembling slightly, not from fear, but from rage. She did not just want the house back. She wanted me. She wanted to become my legal guardian. She wanted to control my bank accounts. She wanted to decide where I lived. She wanted to decide when I ate. She wanted to have the power to lock me away in a real asylum and throw away the key. It was a brilliant move. Evil but brilliant. If she could prove I was crazy, then everything I had done in the last week would be undone. The trust would be dissolved. The house would go back to Kendrick. And since she was still legally married to Kendrick, she would get half of it in the divorce. My phone rang. It was Rothstein. "I assume you got the papers," Rothstein said. His voice was grave. "I am reading them now," I said. "She hired a new lawyer. The name on the filing is Harrison Ford." "No, wait. Harrison is an actor. The name is Milton Graves." Rothstein sighed. "I know Graves. He is a shark Felix. He specializes in elder law, but not in protecting elders. He helps greedy children strip their parents of their rights. He is expensive. Very expensive. Skylar must have liquidated everything she had left to hire him. She sold the car," I said. "Or maybe she found a new credit card I missed." "It does not matter how she paid him," Rothstein said. "What matters is that he convinced a judge to sign a temporary restraining order. The assets of the trust are frozen, Felix. The charity cannot take possession of the house tomorrow. The locks are effectively sealed until this is resolved." I looked at the chessboard on my table. I had thought I was playing against a novice. I forgot that a cornered novice will hire a grandmaster if they are desperate enough. "So, what is the next step?" I asked. "We have a hearing in 48 hours, Rothstein said. "It is a competency hearing. Graves is going to demand a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. He wants a doctor to certify that you are unfit." "Let him try," I said. "I am as sharp as a razor." "Do not get cocky," Felix Rothstein warned. "These evaluations are tricky. They ask questions designed to confuse you. If you forget a date, if you stumble on a name, they use it against you. And Graves will have witnesses. He will bring in neighbors. He will bring in the nursing home staff. He will paint a picture of a confused old man who wanders around in his pajamas. I looked at my pajamas folded neatly on the pillow. I had played the part too well. I had spent a month acting like a senile fool to trick my son. Now that performance was being used as evidence against me. "I will be ready," I said. I hung up the phone. I stood up and walked to the mirror. I looked at my reflection. I saw the gray hair. I saw the wrinkles. I saw the tired eyes. They saw a victim. I saw a veteran. I spent the next 2 days preparing. I did not sleep. I reviewed my medical records. I memorized the dates of every major event in the last 10 years. I practiced reciting the presidents backward. I solved calculus problems in my head. I was training for a mental marathon. The morning of the hearing arrived. I put on my best suit. It was a navy blue wool suit I had bought for Kendrick S.'s wedding. It was a little loose now, but I pressed it until the creases were sharp enough to cut paper. I polished my shoes until I could see my face in the leather. I called a taxi. I did not want to arrive in a nursing home van. I wanted to arrive like a man of business. The courthouse was a massive stone building downtown. It was designed to intimidate. The columns were tall. The stairs were steep. I walked up the steps with my head held high. Rothstein was waiting for me in the lobby. He looked worried. "Graves is in there already," Rothstein whispered. "He has Skylar with him. She looks confident." "Let us go see," I said. We walked into the courtroom. It was quiet. The air smelled of wood polish and dust. Skylar was sitting at the plaintiff's table. She was wearing a modest black dress. She had removed her heavy makeup. She wore her hair in a simple bun. She looked like a grieving daughter who was just trying to do the right thing. She was an actress. Next to her was Milton Graves. He was a small man with sharp features and glasses that magnified his eyes. He looked like a bird of prey scanning for a mouse. I sat down at the defendant's table. Skylar turned to look at me. She did not sneer. She did not glare. She looked at me with a soft, pitying expression. "Hello, Felix," she whispered loud enough for the court reporter to hear. "You look nice today. Did the nurses help you dress?" I ignored her. I opened my briefcase and took out a notepad. "All rise," the bailiff shouted. Judge Marilyn Stone walked in. She was a stern woman with gray hair and a no-nonsense face. She sat down and adjusted her robes. "We are here for the matter of Vance versus Turner," she said. "This is an emergency competency hearing. Mr. Graves, you may proceed." Graves stood up. He walked to the center of the room. He did not look at the judge. He looked at me. "Your Honor," he began, his voice smooth and oily. "This is a tragic case. We have here Mr. Felix Turner, a man who worked hard all his life. But sadly, age comes for us all. In the last 6 months, Mr. Turner's mental state has deteriorated rapidly." "Objection," Rothstein said. "Counsel is testifying." "Sustained," Judge Stone said. "Stick to the facts, Mr. Graves." "Of course," Graves said. "The facts are these. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Turner was admitted to a nursing home because he could no longer care for himself. He was forgetting to eat. He was leaving the stove on. He was wandering the streets at night. Lies. All lies. But they sounded plausible." Graves continued, "And in this vulnerable state, he made a rash decision. He signed away his only asset, his home, to a charity. He disinherited his only son. He left himself destitute. These are not the actions of a rational man, Your Honor. These are the actions of a man who is confused, paranoid, and in need of protection." He pointed a finger at Skylar. "My client, Mrs. Vance, is heartbroken. She wants to save Mr. Turner from himself. She is asking the court to grant her guardianship so she can ensure he receives the medical care he desperately needs and to reverse this disastrous property transfer." Judge Stone looked at me. "Mr. Rothstein, does your client wish to speak?" Rothstein stood up. "Your Honor, Mr. Turner is fully competent. The transfer of property was a conscious and deliberate act of estate planning. The allegations of dementia are fabricated by a disgruntled daughter-in-law who is upset that she lost her access to his money." Graves smiled. It was a predatory smile. "If he is so competent," Graves said, "then he should have no problem answering a few simple questions." "I call Felix Turner to the stand." I stood up. My legs felt heavy, but I walked steadily to the witness stand. I placed my hand on the Bible. I swore to tell the truth. I sat down. The chair was hard. Graves approached me. He stood very close. He smelled of expensive cologne and mints. "Good morning, Mr. Turner," Graves said. "Do you know where you are?" I am in the Fulton County Superior Court courtroom 4B, I replied clearly. Very good, Graves said condescendingly. And do you know what day it is? It is Thursday, October 28th, I said. Graves nodded. Tell me, Mr. Turner, why did you sign yourself into the Greenwood nursing home? I did not sign myself in, I said. My son drove me there. He told me it was temporary. Ah, Graves said. But you signed the admission papers. We have them here. He held up a document. And you signed the power of attorney giving your son control over your finances. I did, I said. Why would you give control of your money to a man you now claim is irresponsible? Graves asked. If you were sound of mind, why would you hand over your life savings to a gambler? It was a trap. If I said I trusted Kendrick, I looked foolish. If I said I did it to trick him, I sounded paranoid. I paused. I needed to thread the needle. I trusted him because he is my son, I said. A father always hopes for the best even when the evidence suggests otherwise. A noble sentiment, Graves said. Or perhaps you just forgot. Perhaps you forgot that he had a gambling problem, just like you forgot to turn off the stove, just like you forgot where you put your keys. I never forgot my keys, I said. We have an affidavit here, Graves said, pulling out another paper, from a Mrs. Higgins, head nurse at Greenwood. She states that last week you accused your son of stealing your debit card, only to find it later in your own pocket. She states you were crying and confused. I felt a cold shiver. Mrs. Higgins. I had used her to document Kendrick's abuse. Now Graves was twisting that report to prove my insanity. I had acted too well. I was acting, I said. I wanted to protect myself from him. Acting Graves laughed. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, this is a common symptom of dementia. The patient invents elaborate stories to cover up their confusion. They believe they are spies or secret agents. Mr. Turner believes he is playing a game of chess. In reality, he is losing his grip on reality. He leaned in close to me again. Mr. Turner, what is your wife's name? Esther, I said. Her name was Esther. And when did she die? 5 years ago, May 3rd. Graves paused. He looked at his notes. And what did you eat for breakfast this morning? Toast and coffee, I said. And yesterday, oatmeal, I said. Oatmeal, I told. Graves smiled. Actually, Mr. Turner, according to the nursing home logs, you did not eat breakfast yesterday. You refused it. You said the food was poisoned. I blinked. I had refused the food because it was cold and rubbery. I had made a joke about it being poison. It was a figure of speech, I said. Was it, Graves asked, or was it paranoia? He turned to the judge. Your Honor, I think the pattern is clear. We have a man who signs documents he does not understand, who creates fantasies about traps and spies, who believes his food is poisoned. We ask that the court order an immediate psychological evaluation by a state-appointed doctor. Until then, we ask that the guardianship be granted to Mrs. Vance on a temporary basis. Judge Stone looked at me. She looked concerned. Mr. Turner, she said, the court takes these matters very seriously. Before I rule, I want to ask you one question myself. Yes, Your Honor, I said. Why did you give the house to a charity instead of your son? Most fathers would leave their estate to their children. I looked at Schuyler. She was watching me with hungry eyes. She was already mentally decorating my house. She was already spending my money. I looked at the judge. Your Honor, I said, I gave the house to the charity because my son does not need a house. He needs a lesson. And my wife, she always wanted to help children who had no one to protect them. I took a breath. I am not crazy. Your Honor, I am just a father who had to make the hardest decision of his life. Judge Stone nodded slowly. She picked up her gavel. I am going to order the evaluation, she said. My heart sank, but she continued. I am denying the temporary guardianship. Mr. Turner will remain in control of his own person until the doctor's report is filed. However, the assets will remain frozen. We will reconvene in 1 week. She banged the gavel. I slumped back in my chair. It was a draw. I had survived the first wave, but the siege was not over. Graves walked over to me. He packed up his briefcase. Enjoy your week, Mr. Turner, he said softly. The doctor I use is very thorough. He will find what we are looking for. Schuyler walked past me. She leaned down. You are just delaying the inevitable, Felix, she whispered. I will get that house. And when I do, I am going to put you in the basement. They walked out of the courtroom. Rothstein patted my shoulder. We bought some time, Felix. But Graves is right. The state doctors are overworked and cynical. If you miss one question, they will label you incompetent. We need a plan. I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. I have a plan, I said. What is it? Rothstein asked. I am going to study, I said. I am going to learn everything there is to know about the doctor they assigned to me. I am going to know his history, his methods, and his weaknesses. I looked at the empty doorway where Schuyler had exited. She thinks this is a medical exam, I said. It is not. It is an interrogation. And I have never failed an inspection in my life. I walked out of the courthouse. The sun was blinding. I had 1 week to prove I was sane, 1 week to save my legacy, and I knew exactly where to start. I needed to find the one person who knew Schuyler S. secrets better than I did. I needed to find her ex-husband. The week of waiting was over. I sat in the witness chair in courtroom 4B. My back was straight. My hands were folded in my lap. I looked at the seal of the state of Georgia hanging on the wall above Judge Stone. Wisdom, justice, and moderation. Today, I would need all three. Milton Graves stood up from the plaintiff table. He buttoned his expensive Italian suit. He adjusted his silk tie. He looked like a man who was about to carve a turkey. He smiled at Schuyler, who was dabbing her dry eyes with a tissue. Then he turned his predatory gaze toward me. The court-appointed psychologist had filed a neutral report. He said I showed signs of age, but was generally responsive. That was not enough for Graves. He needed to break me on the stand. He needed to make me stutter. He needed to make me cry. He needed to prove to the judge that the man sitting in the chair was a husk of a human being incapable of managing a checking account, let alone $1 million estate. Mr. Turner Graves began. His voice was loud. It echoed off the mahogany walls. Let us revisit your testimony from last week. You claim you are perfectly sane. You claim you gave your house to charity out of the goodness of your heart. I did, I replied. My voice was steady. Graves walked closer. He leaned his arm on the railing of the witness box. He invaded my personal space. It was a tactic designed to intimidate. Let us test that memory you are so proud of. What is the date today? It is November 4th, I said. And who is the Vice President of the United States? I answered him correctly. Graves yawned. He made a show of looking bored. Trivia, Graves said. Anyone can memorize trivia. Let us talk about your daily life. Mr. Turner, do you know how to use a smartphone? I do, I said. Really? Graves asked. Because your daughter-in-law claims you frequently get confused by the television remote. She says you once tried to change the channel with a calculator. Is that true? Schuyler had invented that story. I had never done that. But if I denied it too passionately, I would look defensive. I have never used a calculator as a remote, I said. Though modern remotes do have too many buttons. Graves laughed. He looked at the gallery. Too many buttons. Indeed. It is a confusing world for the elderly, isn't it, Mr. Turner? Technology moves so fast. Money moves so fast. Speaking of money, do you know what a trust is? I stiffened. Here it comes. I believe I do, I said. Define it for me, Graves commanded. In your own words. Explain to this court what an irrevocable trust is. And please take your time. We know legal concepts can be difficult to grasp. He was baiting me. He wanted me to stumble. He wanted me to say something simple like, it is a place to put money. Then he would tear me apart with legal jargon proving I did not understand the consequences of my actions. I took a sip of water. I looked at Schuyler. She was smirking. She thought I was going to fail. She thought the old logistics manager only knew about trucks and crates. She forgot that logistics is 90% contracts. I looked at the judge. Your Honor, I said. May I answer the question fully? Please do, Mr. Turner, Judge Stone said. I turned back to Graves. An irrevocable trust. I began speaking clearly as a fiduciary arrangement where the grantor transfers assets into the control of a trustee for the benefit of a beneficiary. Once the assets are transferred, the grantor cannot alter, amend, or revoke the trust without the permission of the beneficiary. The assets are removed from the grantor's taxable estate and are protected from creditors and legal judgments against the grantor. Silence filled the courtroom. Graves' smile faltered. I continued. In this specific case under Georgia Code Title 53. Chapter 12. The trust I established is a charitable remainder trust. It is designed to provide immediate housing for the Atlanta Youth Shelter. The deed was recorded in accordance with the Uniform Real Property Electronic Recording Act. I leaned forward, looking Graves in the eye. Is that a sufficient definition, counselor? Or would you like me to cite the specific case law regarding the duty of loyalty owed by a trustee? Graves took a step back. He looked like he had been slapped. He looked at his notes. He looked at Schuyler. Schuyler's mouth was slightly open. Well, Graves stammered. Memorizing a definition is not the same as understanding the reality. You gave away your home. You left yourself homeless. That is not the act of a rational man. That is the act of a man who has lost his survival instinct. It was the act of a man who values dignity over drywall, I said. Graves recovered his composure. He was a professional bully. He knew how to pivot. Dignity, he scoffed. Let us talk about dignity. You claim Mrs. Vance mistreated you. You claim she starved you. You claim she abused you. But we have no evidence of this. We only have the word of a man who admits to hiding cameras in his own walls. That sounds like paranoia, Mr. Turner. That sounds like a delusion of persecution. He walked back to his table and picked up a piece of paper. I have here a sworn statement from your neighbors. They say Schuyler Vance was a devoted daughter-in-law. They say she drove you to appointments. They say she cooked for you. They say you are ungrateful. He waved the paper in the air. Who do we believe, Mr. Turner? The loving woman sitting right there, or the confused old man who thinks his family is out to get him? You have no proof. You have no witnesses. All you have is a story. And stories are just symptoms of your disease. My heart hammered against my ribs. He was right about one thing. It was my word against hers. And she was young and beautiful and crying. I was old and stubborn. In a he said, she said battle, the old man usually loses. But I did not just have a story. I had data. I reached into the inner pocket of my suit jacket. Mr. Graves, I said, in the shipping industry we have a saying, if it is not written down, it did not happen. I pulled out a small black notebook. It was tattered. The cover was worn. It was the notebook I had carried in my shirt pocket every day for the last 5 years. What is that? Graves asked warily. This is my logbook, I said. I have kept a daily log of every shipment I ever managed since 1980. When I retired, I continued the habit. I logged the weather. I logged my blood pressure. And for the last 5 years, I logged every interaction I had with my son and his wife. I opened the book. The pages were filled with my neat, cramped handwriting. Judge Stone leaned forward. What is in the book, Mr. Turner? She asked. I put on my reading glasses. May I read a few entries, Your Honor? Proceed, the judge said. I flipped to a page near the middle. Entry date August 12, 2021, I read. Temperature 88 degrees. Humidity 70%. Lunchtime. Schuyler made grilled salmon for herself and Kendrick. She gave me a slice of white bread and a glass of water. When I asked for fish, she told me that salmon is for people who contribute to the household income. She laughed. Kendrick said nothing. I heard a gasp from the gallery. I looked at Schuyler. She was pale. She gripped the edge of the table. I flipped another page. Entry date December 25, 2022. Christmas Day. Temperature 40 degrees. The family opened presents in the living room. Schuyler received a diamond bracelet. Kendrick received a new watch. They gave me a pair of socks. They are 2 sizes too small. Schuyler told me not to complain because I would be dead soon anyway. She said it was a waste of money to buy gifts for a ghost. Liar, Schuyler screamed. She stood up. Her chair fell over with a crash. He is lying. I never said that. He is writing those things now. He is making it up. Sit down, Mrs. Vance Judge Stone barked. Her gavel banged against the sound block. I did not stop. I turned to a page from just last month. Entry date October 1st, 2023. I fell in the hallway. My hip was bruised. I could not get up. Schuyler stepped over me to get her purse. She told me to stop being dramatic. She left me on the floor for 3 hours until the mailman saw me through the window and called for help. Schuyler told the paramedics I had just fallen. I closed the book. The sound was soft, but in the silent courtroom it sounded like a gunshot. I looked at Graves. He was speechless. He knew that a contemporaneous log kept over years was powerful evidence. It showed a pattern. It showed consistency. It showed a mind that was not confused, but painfully, acutely aware. Mr. Graves, I said quietly, a man with dementia does not record the humidity. A man with dementia does not document the time of day. A man with dementia forgets. I wish I could forget. But I remember every single moment of the last 5 years. I remember every insult. I remember every meal I missed. I remember every time she looked at me like I was a piece of trash she wanted to sweep away. I held up the notebook. This is not paranoia, counselor. This is the manifest of my suffering. Graves looked at the judge. He looked defeated. "Your Honor," he said weakly, "we object to the introduction of this diary. We have had no chance to authenticate the handwriting." Judge Stone stared at Graves. Her eyes were cold. "Overruled," she said. She looked at Schuyler. Schuyler was shaking. She was not crying anymore. She was glaring at me with pure, unadulterated hate. The mask had slipped. The grieving daughter was gone. The monster was visible. Judge Stone turned to me. "Mr. Turner," she said, "your testimony regarding the definition of a trust was impressive. Your logbook is heartbreaking, but I do not need either of them to make my ruling." She took off her glasses. "I have watched you in this courtroom for 2 hours. I have watched you listen. I have watched you speak. You are articulate, you are observant, and you are more organized than half the lawyers who come before this bench." She looked at Graves. "Mr. Graves, your petition alleges that Mr. Turner lacks the capacity to manage his affairs. After hearing his testimony, I would argue that he manages his affairs with a level of precision that frankly intimidates me." She picked up her pen. "The petition for guardianship is denied with prejudice. That means you cannot file it again. The temporary restraining order on the assets is lifted immediately. The Esther Turner Memorial Trust is valid. The transfer of the property is valid." She looked at Schuyler. "And Mrs. Vance, I am going to forward the transcript of this hearing to the District Attorney's office. Leaving an elderly man on the floor for 3 hours is not just unkind. It is criminal neglect. You should be very careful from now on." She banged the gavel. "Case dismissed." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Rothstein grabbed my hand and shook it vigorously. "You did it, Felix," he whispered. "You absolutely destroyed them. The logbook. I did not know you had the logbook. That was genius." I put the notebook back in my pocket. It felt lighter now. "It was just the truth, Arthur. Just the truth." I looked across the aisle. Graves was packing his briefcase quickly, trying to escape. Schuyler was standing alone. She looked small. She looked furious. She walked over to me. Her face was twisted. "You think you won?" she hissed. "You think you are so smart." I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. "I did not win, Schuyler," I said. "Nobody wins in a war like this. I just survived. You have nothing." She spat. "You have no house. You have no son. You are going to die alone in that nursing home." I looked her up and down. I saw the cheap dress. I saw the fear in her eyes. She was the one with nothing. Her husband was in jail. Her reputation was ruined. Her get-rich-quick scheme had exploded. "I have my dignity," I said, "and I have my freedom. And starting tomorrow, I have a volunteer job at the youth shelter. I will be very busy." I leaned in close. "And you, Schuyler, you have a court date for the assault on the security guard. And now you have a DA investigation for neglect. I suggest you save your anger. You are going to need it to keep you warm in prison." I turned my back on her. I walked down the aisle. The heavy wooden doors of the courtroom opened. I stepped out into the hallway. The air was cool. I had faced the lawyer. I had faced the judge. I had faced the demons of my past. And I was still standing. But as I walked toward the exit, my phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. I stopped. I opened it. The message was short. "Your son owes me $50,000. He is in jail, so he cannot pay. Debts are inherited, old man. I am coming to collect." It was from Big Mike, the loan shark. I stared at the screen. The legal battle was over, but the real war had just begun. Schuyler was defeated, but now I had a new enemy. An enemy who did not care about laws or judges or diaries. I put the phone in my pocket. I walked out of the courthouse. I needed to call Arthur. We needed to fortify the perimeter. The game of chess was finished. Now it was time for a street fight. The heavy steel doors of the Fulton County Jail slid open with a sound like a grinding stone. Kendrick stepped out into the gray afternoon. He blinked against the light. He looked thinner than when he went in. His designer suit was wrinkled and stained. His shoes were scuffed. He looked around the parking lot with desperate eyes. He was looking for a silver Mercedes. He was looking for Schuyler. He was hoping that despite everything, she would be there to pick him up. The parking lot was empty except for a few aging sedans and a black van idling near the exit. Schuyler was not coming. I knew this because I had seen the court filings. She had already moved into a hotel and blocked his number. Kendrick was alone in the world. He started walking. He had no money for a taxi. He had no phone. It had been confiscated as evidence. He walked with his head down, huddled in his jacket against the wind. He did not get far. The black van peeled away from the curb. Its tires screeched on the asphalt. It cut across the lanes and screeched to a halt right in front of Kendrick, blocking his path. The side door slid open. 2 men jumped out. They were not police officers, they were not friends, they were thick-set men with tattoos on their necks and violence in their eyes. Kendrick tried to run. He scrambled backward, but he was weak from prison food and lack of sleep. One of the men grabbed him by the collar of his jacket. He dragged him toward the van like a sack of laundry. "Help!" Kendrick screamed. "Someone help me!" But nobody helps a man outside a jail. People looked away. They rolled up their windows. The men threw Kendrick into the back of the van. The door slammed shut. The van sped away, disappearing into the flow of traffic on the highway. I was sitting in the common room of the nursing home when my burner phone rang. It was an unknown number. I knew who it was. I had been expecting this call since the moment the judge released Kendrick. I picked up the phone. I did not speak. "Mr. Turner," a deep voice said. It sounded like gravel in a cement mixer. "I am listening," I said. "We have the package," the voice said. "Your boy is with us. He looks a little shaken up. He owes us $50,000 plus late fees." I took a sip of my tea. My hand was steady. "He is an adult," I said. "His debts are his own." The man laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. Normally, yes. But he says he has no money. He says his daddy has a house. He says his daddy has gold. So now his debt is your debt. "I do not negotiate with criminals," I said. "Then you can negotiate with the undertaker," the man said. "You have 2 hours, $50,000 in cash. Drop it in the trash can behind the old Texaco on Main Street. If you call the police, we will send him back to you in pieces, starting with his fingers." He hung up. I looked at the phone. Most fathers would be panicking right now. Most fathers would be running to the bank or calling relatives to borrow money. They would sell their souls to save their son. But I was not just a father. I was a logistics manager. And I knew that if you pay a hijacker once, you will pay him forever. If I gave Big Mike $50,000 today, he would want another $50,000 next week. He would bleed me dry, and then he would kill Kendrick anyway because a witness is a liability. I did not call the bank. I opened my contact list. I scrolled past the lawyers. I scrolled past the doctors. I stopped at a name I had not called in 10 years. Miller. Captain James Miller of the Atlanta Police Department. But before he was a captain, he was a corporal in my platoon in Vietnam. We had crawled through mud together. We had watched friends die together. I had carried him 3 miles with a bullet in his leg. He owed me. And Miller was a man who paid his debts. I pressed the call button. "Miller here," a voice answered. It was sharp and authoritative. "It is Felix," I said. There was a pause. Then the tone of the voice changed. It became warmer, but also alert. "Felix, it has been a long time. Is everything all right?" "I have a situation, Jim," I said. "It is a code red." Code red. That was our old military shorthand. It meant immediate danger. Enemy contact. Requesting extraction. "Talk to me," Miller said. "Big Mike," I said. "He has my son. They snatched him outside the county jail 10 minutes ago. They are demanding 50 grand. "I know, Big Mike," Miller said. "We have been trying to nail that guy for racketeering for years. He operates out of an abandoned textile warehouse in the industrial district. Do you have a location?" "I do not," I said. "But I have his phone number. He just called me." "Give it to me," Miller ordered. I read him the number. "I am tracing it now," Miller said. "I hear keyboards clacking in the background." "Got it. The signal is pinging from a cell tower near the rail yards. That confirms the warehouse location." "What do you want to do?" Felix Miller asked. "Do you want to pay him?" "We can mark the bills. No money," I said firmly. "Money buys time, but it does not buy respect. I want my son back, and I want Big Mike to know he touched the wrong family." Miller chuckled. It was a grim sound. "I hear you loud and clear, Sergeant. I have a SWAT team geared up for a drug raid tonight. I think I will redirect them." "How long?" I asked. "Give us 20 minutes, Miller said. "Sit tight, Felix. We will bring him home." I hung up the phone. I stood up and walked to the closet. I took out my old Army field jacket. I put it on. It smelled of mothballs, but it fit perfectly. I walked out of the nursing home. I did not ask for permission. I hailed a taxi. "Take me to the industrial district," I told the driver. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. "That is a rough neighborhood, Pops." "You sure?" "Just drive," I said. 20 minutes later, the taxi stopped at the edge of the police cordon. Blue lights flashed against the brick walls of the old warehouses. There were armored vehicles. There were men in black tactical gear holding rifles. I paid the driver and stepped out. A young officer stepped forward to stop me. "Sir, this is a restricted area. You need to step back." I ignored him. I looked toward the command truck. A tall man with silver hair and a Captain S uniform was stepping out. "Miller." He saw me. He waved the officer away. "Let him through," Miller said. I walked up to him. We did not hug. We shook hands. His grip was strong. "You look good, Felix," Miller said. "You look tired, Jim," I replied. "The warehouse is secure," Miller said, pointing to the building. "We hit them hard. Flashbangs, tear gas. They didn't know what hit them. We have Big Mike and 3 of his associates in cuffs." "And Kendrick?" I asked. "He is inside," Miller said. "He is unharmed physically, but he is a mess." I walked toward the warehouse. The air smelled of smoke and pepper spray. I walked through the large metal doors. Inside, officers were cataloging evidence: guns, cash, drugs. Big Mike was sitting on the floor, his hands cuffed behind his back. He looked up at me. His eyes were red from the gas. He looked confused. He expected a terrified old man with a bag of cash. Instead, he got a raid. I stopped in front of him. "I told you I do not negotiate," I said. Big Mike spat on the floor. "You are crazy, old man." "I am not crazy," I said. "I am efficient." I walked past him to the back of the room. Kendrick was sitting on a crate. He was wrapped in a shock blanket. He was shivering violently. His eyes were wide and vacant. He saw me approaching. He stood up. The blanket fell from his shoulders. "Dad," he cried. "Dad, you came." He ran toward me. He wanted to hug me. He wanted to bury his face in my chest and be told that everything was okay. I held up my hand. "Stop." Kendrick froze. "Dad," he stammered. "They had guns. They were going to kill me." "I know," I said. "You paid them?" he asked. "You paid the 50,000. I stepped closer to him. I looked him up and down. "I did not pay them a single cent," I said. Kendrick looked around at the SWAT team, at the armored trucks, at the captain of the police standing next to me. Then how he whispered. I pointed at Captain Miller. "I served my country, Kendrick," I said. "I built relationships based on honor and loyalty. When I call for help, men come because they respect me, not because I buy them." Kendrick looked at Miller. Miller nodded at him. "Your father is a good man, son," Miller said. "You should try to be more like him." Kendrick looked back at me. Shame washed over his face. He realized the magnitude of what had happened. I had not saved him with the inheritance he tried to steal. I had saved him with the character he had ignored. "Money is not power, Kendrick," I said softly. "Character is power. Friends are power. You have spent your whole life chasing the wrong currency." Kendrick sank back down onto the crate. He put his head in his hands. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you go to the station to give a statement," I said. "You are a witness. Big Mike is going away for a long time, and you are going to be safe." I turned to Miller. "Take him in, Jim. Keep him in protective custody until the trial." "Will do," Miller said. "Do you want to ride home, Felix?" "No," I said. "I will take a cab. I have a volunteer shift at the shelter tomorrow." I looked at Kendrick one last time. "Goodbye, son," I said. I walked out of the warehouse. The night air was cool. The sirens were fading. I had saved his life, but I could not save his soul. That was a journey he had to make on his own. I got into a taxi. "Where to?" the driver asked. "Home," I said. And for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly where that was. It was not a building. It was a state of mind. And I was finally at peace. The morning sun hit the windows of my old house, but it brought no warmth. The house was quiet. It was the kind of silence that hangs over a battlefield after the shooting stops. Kendrick was sleeping in the guest room. He had been there for 2 days since I brought him home from the police station. He barely spoke. He barely ate. He just sat by the window watching the street, terrified that Big Mike or his ghost would come back. I sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of black coffee. My phone sat on the placemat in front of me. It was vibrating. Skylar Vance. I let it ring 3 times. I wanted her to sweat. I knew exactly why she was calling. The grapevine in Atlanta is short, and Skylar had ears everywhere. She knew Kendrick was out of jail. She knew Big Mike had been raided. And most importantly, she knew that Kendrick was broke. A parasite does not stay attached to a dead host. It moves on, or it tries to extract one last meal before it leaves. I swiped the green button and put the phone on speaker. "Hello, Skylar," I said. "Felix," she said. Her voice was brisk, businesslike. There was no fake sweetness today. "We need to talk." "I am listening," I said. "Not over the phone," she said. "In person. I have a business proposition for you. One that will ensure your son stays out of your life forever." I looked toward the hallway. The door to the guest room was slightly ajar. I knew Kendrick was awake. I could hear the floorboards creak as he paced. "Come over," I said. "The front door is unlocked." I hung up. I stood up and walked to the guest room. I pushed the door open. Kendrick was sitting on the edge of the bed. He jumped when he saw me. His eyes were wide and bloodshot. "Dad," he whispered. "Was that her? Was that Skylar?" I nodded. "She is coming over, son." Kendrick stood up. His hands started to shake. He smoothed down his wrinkled shirt. "I need to see her," he said. "I need to explain. If I tell her what happened with Big Mike, she will understand. She loves me, Dad. She was just scared." I looked at him with pity. He was still an addict. He was not addicted to drugs or gambling anymore. He was addicted to the woman who had destroyed him. He needed a detox. And today, I was going to give him the strongest dose of reality available. "No, Kendrick," I said sternly. "You are not going to see her. You are going to listen to her." I pointed to the pantry in the kitchen. It was a small closet with a slatted door. It was invisible from the main table, but sound traveled through it perfectly. "Get in the pantry," I ordered. "Do not make a sound. Do not breathe too loud. And whatever you hear, do not come out until I tell you." But Dad, Kendrick protested. "Do it," I snapped, "unless you want to walk out that door and face the world alone again." Kendrick lowered his head. He walked into the kitchen and squeezed himself into the small pantry among the cans of soup and bags of rice. I closed the door until it was just a crack open. 10 minutes later, I heard a car door slam. Skylar did not knock. She walked right in. She looked different. The frantic woman who had screamed at the security guards was gone. In her place was a cold, calculated businesswoman. She wore a sharp white suit. Her hair was pulled back tight. She carried a leather portfolio. She sat down at the kitchen table without being asked. She looked around the room with disdain. "I see you got the fireplace fixed," she said, gesturing to the repaired stonework. "I like things to be in order," I said. Skylar placed her portfolio on the table. She unzipped it. She pulled out a thick document and slid it across to me. I picked it up. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." "I am divorcing him." "Felix," she said. "I filed this morning. Irreconcilable differences." I put the paper down. "He has been out of jail for 48 hours, I said. "You didn't waste any time." "I do not waste time on bad investments," she said. "Kendrick is finished. He has a criminal record. He has massive debts. He is a sinking ship, and I am not going to drown with him." She leaned forward. Her eyes were hard like flint. "But that is not why I am here. I know you, Felix. You are a practical man. You want to protect your legacy. You want to make sure Kendrick never embarrasses you again." "Go on," I said. "I have information," Skylar said. "During our 5 years of marriage, Kendrick was not just gambling. He was moving money. He was falsifying invoices at his real estate firm to cover his losses. He was cheating on his taxes." I took a sip of coffee. "And I suppose you have proof?" I asked. Skylar tapped the leather portfolio. "I have everything. Hard drives, bank statements, emails. I kept copies of everything, Felix. I knew one day he would crash, and I needed an insurance policy." She smiled. It was a reptile smile. "If this information goes to the IRS or the FBI, Kendrick goes to federal prison for 10 years. Minimum. No parole, no daddy to save him." I glanced at the pantry door. It was perfectly still. "What do you want, Skylar?" I asked. $20,000, she said. "Cash." I raised an eyebrow. "You are selling your husband for 20 grand. That seems low." "It is enough to get me to California and start over," she said. "I want to leave this miserable town. I want to forget I ever met him." I leaned back in my chair. I needed her to keep talking. I needed Kendrick to hear not just the betrayal, but the malice. "Tell me something, Skylar," I asked. "Did you ever love him? Even for a minute?" Skylar laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. "Love him. Felix, please, look at him. He is weak. He is a child in a man's body. He has no spine. The only thing attractive about Kendrick was his last name and the inheritance I thought he would get. She inspected her fingernails. I tolerated him, she continued. I tolerated his whining. I tolerated his stupidity. I tolerated his bad breath and his pathetic need for validation. I played the role of the supportive wife because I thought there was a payoff at the end. But you, she pointed a finger at me, you ruined the payoff. You locked up the money. So now Kendrick is useless to me. He is just dead weight. Just dead. I heard a small sound from the pantry, a stifled gasp. Skylar did not hear it. She was too focused on the money. So do we have a deal? She asked. 20,000. I give you the hard drives. You can destroy them, or you can use them to send him away yourself. I do not care. I just want the cash. I looked at her. She was beautiful on the outside, but inside she was rotting. She was offering to send the man she slept with for 5 years to federal prison for the price of a used car. I stood up slowly. I do not have $20,000 cash in the house, Skylar, I said. She frowned. You are lying. I know you have a safe. The safe is empty, I said, but I have something else for you. I walked to the pantry. I grabbed the handle. I pulled the door open. Kendrick fell out. He had been leaning against the door, sliding down to the floor. He was sobbing silently. His face was wet with tears. He looked like a man who had been gutted. Skylar jumped up. Her chair fell over. What the hell, she screamed. You set me up. Kendrick stood up slowly. He wiped his face. He looked at Skylar. He looked at the woman he had stolen for, the woman he had lied for, the woman he had almost died for. You tolerated me, he whispered. His voice was broken glass. Skylar's shock turned into anger. She did not apologize. She did not back down. She realized the deal was dead, so she decided to burn the bridge. Yes, she spat. I tolerated you, and it was the hardest job I ever had. Kendrick stepped toward her. I loved you, Skylar. I gave you everything. I bought you the car. I bought you the clothes. I stole from my own father for you, and look where it got you. Skylar sneered. You are a loser, Kendrick. You were a loser when I met you, and you are a loser now. You are crying in your daddy-esque kitchen because you cannot stand on your own 2 feet. She grabbed her portfolio. I am leaving. Kendrick reached out and grabbed her arm, not aggressively, just desperately. Why, he asked. Why did you do it? Skylar ripped her arm away. Because I wanted a life, Kendrick. A real life. Not this pathetic middle-class existence. I wanted gold, and you gave me brass. She looked at me. You can keep him, Felix. He is all yours. I hope you enjoy babysitting a grown man for the rest of your life. She turned and marched toward the door. Wait, I said. Skylar stopped. She looked back, hoping I had changed my mind about the money. You forgot your divorce papers, I said, pointing to the document on the table. Skylar glared at me. Keep them, she said. Consider it my final gift. Sign them, Kendrick. Or don't. It does not matter. The judge will grant it by default when you do not show up because you are too busy crying. She walked out the front door. She slammed it so hard the windows rattled. Silence returned to the kitchen. Kendrick stood in the center of the room. He was shaking. He looked at the door. Then he looked at me. She hates me, he whispered. She really hates me. She does not hate you, son, I said gently. She just never loved you. There is a difference. Hate implies passion. She only has indifference. Kendrick collapsed into a chair. He put his head on the table and wept. It was not the panicked crying of the jail cell. It was the deep, mournful crying of a man mourning a death, the death of his marriage, the death of his illusions. I let him cry. I poured another cup of coffee and placed it next to his hand. I sat down opposite him. It hurts, I said. It feels like your chest is going to rip open. I want to die, Kendrick sobbed. I have nothing left, Dad. No wife, no money, no career. She has evidence of the fraud. She is going to turn me in. She won't, I said calmly. Kendrick looked up. His eyes were swollen. Why wouldn't she? She wants money. If she cannot get it from you, she will get it from a reward tip. Because Skylar is greedy, I said. But she is also cautious. If she turns over those hard drives, she admits she knew about the fraud. She spent the money you stole. That makes her an accomplice. She is not going to risk prison just to spite you. She was bluffing, Kendrick. She was trying to scare me into paying her. Kendrick sniffed. He wiped his nose. So she is just gone. She is gone, I said. And that is the best thing that has ever happened to you. I picked up the divorce papers. I placed a pen on top of them. Sign them, I said. Kendrick looked at the paper. Now, he asked. Right now, I said. Cut the cord. You cannot heal a wound if you leave the knife inside. Kendrick picked up the pen. His hand trembled. He looked at the line for the respondent. He took a deep breath. He signed his name. Kendrick Turner. He put the pen down. It is done, he whispered. I took the papers. I will have Rothstein file these tomorrow, I said. I stood up. Go wash your face, son. You look terrible. We have work to do. Work, Kendrick asked. What work? I am volunteering at the shelter today, I said. And you are coming with me. You are going to paint walls. You are going to sweep floors. You are going to see people who have real problems, people who do not have a father to make them coffee. Kendrick looked at me. For the first time in years, I saw a spark of respect in his eyes. Okay, Dad, he said. Okay. He went to the bathroom. I heard the water running. I looked at the empty chair where Skylar had sat. She had left empty-handed. But I knew Skylar. She was like a shark that had tasted blood. She would not stop swimming. She needed money. She needed it fast to get to California. She had failed to extort me. She had failed to extort Kendrick. That meant she had only one option left. Theft. I looked at my wallet sitting on the counter. I had left it there intentionally when she walked in. I walked over and opened it. My Platinum Business credit card was gone. I smiled. She had swiped it when I was opening the pantry door. She thought she was slick. She thought she had stolen a ticket to freedom. She did not know that card was a GPS beacon. She did not know that I had set a trigger alert for any transaction over $100. I picked up my phone. I opened the tracking app. The dot was moving. It was heading toward the airport. Run, Skylar, I whispered. Run as fast as you can. I called the number for the fraud division. This is Felix Turner, I said. I would like to report a stolen credit card. The suspect is heading to Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Yes, I want to press charges. Federal charges. I hung up. Kendrick came out of the bathroom. His face was scrubbed clean. He looked tired, but he looked human. I am ready, Dad, he said. Let us go, I said. We walked out of the house, leaving the divorce papers on the table. Skylar was flying toward her destiny, and Kendrick was taking his first step toward his. The logistics of life were finally falling into place. The smell of fresh paint filled the hallway of the Atlanta youth shelter. It was a clean, sharp smell that signaled a new beginning. I dipped my roller into the tray of eggshell white paint and applied a thick coat to the wall covering up the scuff marks and graffiti of the past. Beside me, Kendrick was sanding down a doorframe. He was covered in white dust. He was sweating. He was not wearing a suit. He was wearing old jeans and a t-shirt I had given him. He did not look like a real estate mogul. He looked like a man who was working for his supper, and for the first time in his life, he looked content. I paused in my work and wiped my hands on a rag. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I told Kendrick I needed to check the time. In reality, I was checking the trap. The blue dot on the map was moving. It was moving fast, 70 miles per hour heading south on Interstate 85. There is only one destination in that direction for a woman in a hurry with stolen credit. Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. I smiled internally. Skylar was predictable. She was running. She thought she had outsmarted me. She thought that swiping my wallet while I was distracted by Kendrick's tears was a masterstroke. She did not know that in the world of logistics, we call that a diversionary theft, and we always have a contingency plan for diversions. I tapped the icon on the screen. It showed the status of the American Express Platinum card ending in 4098. Status active. Location Highway 85 South. This was not a personal credit card. If it were a personal card, the police might treat it as a domestic dispute. They might tell me to file a report and wait a week. Number. This card was issued to Turner Logistics Corporation. It was a corporate instrument tied to federal shipping contracts. Stealing it was not just theft, it was wire fraud, it was corporate espionage, it was a federal offense. I put the phone back in my pocket. Dad, Kendrick asked, looking up from his sanding. Is everything okay? Everything is right on schedule, son, I said. Keep sanding. We need this room ready for the new bunk beds by tomorrow. I picked up my roller again. While my hands painted the wall, my mind traveled down the highway following the blue dot. I could see Skylar in her car. She would be driving with one hand on the wheel and the other clutching that platinum card. She would be grinning. She would be thinking about the $20,000 limit on that card. She was probably planning to buy a first-class ticket to Paris or Dubai. somewhere with expensive hotels and no extradition treaties. She thought she was flying toward freedom. She did not know she was flying straight into a net. 30 minutes later, my phone vibrated. Transaction alert, Delta Airlines ticketing counter, international terminal. Amount $8,400. She had bought the ticket. One way. First class. I stopped painting. I closed my eyes and visualized the scene. Skylar standing at the counter in her white suit, looking down her nose at the ticket agent. She would hand over the heavy metal card with a flourish. She would tap her manicured nails on the counter while the agent ran it. But the machine would not just print a receipt. I had placed a code 10 on that card. In the banking world, a code 10 meant that the merchant must call the authorization center immediately. It meant that the card was stolen and the police should be notified silently. The ticket agent would look at the screen. A prompt would appear. Call center, do not return card, detain customer if possible. The agent would smile that polite customer service smile. One moment, Mom, the agent would say, the system is just a little slow today. Skylar would sigh. She would look at her watch. Hurry up, she would snap. I have a plane to catch. I am a priority passenger. The agent would type a message to airport security. I checked my phone again. The blue dot had stopped moving. It was stationary at Terminal F. I waited. 5 minutes passed. 10 minutes. Then my phone rang. It was not a notification. It was a call from a number I recognized. The fraud division of the Atlanta Police Department. Mr. Turner, the detective said. Speaking, I answered. We have detained a woman at the airport attempting to use your corporate card. She matches the description you gave us. Skylar Vance. Did she resist, I asked. She caused quite a scene, the detective said. She claimed she was your wife. Then she claimed she was your business partner. Then she tried to run. We had to tackle her near the security checkpoint. I felt a cold satisfaction. Skylar Vance on the floor of the international terminal in her white suit, handcuffed in front of the tourists she despised. Did you find the hard drives, I asked? The detective paused. Yes, sir. We searched her carry-on bag. We found 3 external hard drives and a stack of financial documents. She was screaming that they were her insurance policy. Those drives contain evidence of embezzlement, I said. They belong to my son, his former company, but she stole them to commit extortion. I suggest you hand them over to the FBI. We will handle it, Mr. Turner, the detective said. She is being transported to the federal holding facility right now. The charges are credit card fraud, identity theft, and flight to avoid prosecution. She's looking at a very long vacation, but not in Paris. Thank you, detective, I said. I hung up. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence of the room wash over me. It was done. The last piece of the puzzle had been snapped into place. Skylar was gone, not just out of the house, but out of society. She had flown too close to the sun on wings made of stolen plastic. Kendrick stopped sanding. He looked at me. He saw the expression on my face. Dad, he said. What happened? You look different. I walked over to him. I put a hand on his shoulder. His shirt was damp with sweat. He smelled of sawdust and honest work. Do you remember Skylar's insurance policy? I asked. The hard drives. Kendrick went pale. Yes. She is going to release them, isn't she? The IRS is coming for me. No, son, I said. The IRS is not coming for you, and Skylar is not releasing anything. I took the sanding block from his hand. Skylar was just arrested at the airport, I said. She tried to buy a plane ticket with my stolen credit card. The police confiscated everything she had, including the hard drives. Kendrick's knees buckled. He sat down heavily on a paint bucket. But the evidence, he stammered. If the police have the drives, they will see what I did. They will see the fraud. I shook my head. They will see files that Skylar stole, I said. They will see that she was in possession of sensitive financial data that she tried to sell. Any lawyer worth his salt will argue that those files were compromised, that she manipulated them to frame you, that she was the mastermind behind the scheme. I looked him in the eye. You are going to have to testify, Kendrick. You are going to have to tell the truth about her. You are going to say that she pressured you, that she controlled the finances, that you were afraid of her. Kendrick stared at the floor. It is the truth, he whispered. I did everything she wanted. Then you have nothing to fear, I said. The narrative has changed. You are not the villain anymore, son. You are the victim of a manipulative spouse who stole from your father and tried to flee the country. The police have bigger fish to fry. They want the woman who assaulted a security guard and committed federal wire fraud. They do not care about a husband who made a few bad accounting errors under duress. Kendrick looked up. Tears were forming in his eyes again, but these were tears of relief. The heavy weight that had been crushing his chest for 5 years was finally lifted. "She is really gone?" he asked. "She is gone," I promised. "She is in a federal holding cell. She will not be wearing white silk where she is going, and she certainly won't be wearing diamonds." Kendrick let out a long, shuddering breath. He wiped his face with his dirty hands, leaving streaks of white dust on his cheeks. "I don't know what to say, Dad. I don't know how to thank you." "Do not thank me," I said. "Just paint." I handed him a fresh roller. "We have 2 more walls to finish before dinner, and these kids need a clean place to sleep." Kendrick took the roller. He stood up. He looked at the wall. It was a blank canvas. He dipped the roller in the paint. He started to work. His strokes were stronger now, more confident. I went back to my own wall. We worked in silence, side by side. The rhythm of the rollers was soothing. Swish, swish, swish. We were covering up the old stains. We were making things new. I thought about Skylar sitting in a police car watching the airport fade into the distance. She had wanted a life of luxury. She had wanted to be special. Now she was just a number in the federal system, inmate number 4098. I thought about the house. It was safe. It belonged to the charity now. Tomorrow the first group of children would move in. The laughter that had been missing from those halls for so long would finally return. And I thought about myself, Felix Turner, the man everyone thought was a senile old fool, the man who was supposed to fade away quietly into the night. I dipped my roller into the tray. I was not fading away. I was just getting started. The logistics of revenge were complete. Now it was time for the logistics of reconstruction. Dad, Kendrick said, breaking the silence. "Yes, son. After we finish here, can we go get some dinner? I am starving." I looked at him. He looked like a mess. But he was my mess. "Sure, son," I said. "There is a diner down the street. They make a terrible coffee, but the apple pie is honest." Kendrick smiled. It was a small, tentative smile. But it was real. "I would like that," he said. We kept painting. The sun began to set outside, casting long shadows across the floor. But inside the room was bright and white and clean. The trap had sprung, the prey was caught, and the hunters were finally going home. But as I watched the paint dry, I knew that one final chapter remained. The closing of the book, the final report. Because a logistics manager never leaves a job until the final paperwork is signed and filed. Tomorrow I would visit Skylar one last time, not to gloat, but to say goodbye, and to remind her of the one rule she forgot: never underestimate a man who has nothing left to lose except his family. The coffee at Silver Creek Estates is imported from Colombia. It is rich and dark and served in porcelain cups with gold rims. I sit on the terrace overlooking the rose garden. The air smells of blooming jasmine and freshly cut grass. It is a stark contrast to the smell of bleach and despair that permeated the air at Greenwood Nursing Home just 1 year ago. I adjusted the cuff of my linen shirt. I checked my watch. It was 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon. I am a creature of habit. In logistics, consistency is the key to efficiency. And Sunday at 2:00 is reserved for a specific appointment. I looked toward the parking lot. A white van pulled in. It was not a luxury sedan. It was a Ford Transit with dents on the bumper and a ladder rack on the roof. On the side, in bold red letters, it read, "Turner Plumbing Services." The driver got out. He was wearing heavy work boots and blue coveralls. His name was stitched on the pocket, Kendrick. He walked toward the terrace. He did not strut like the real estate mogul he used to pretend to be. He walked with the heavy, measured gait of a man who works with his hands. He looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his hands were rough and stained with grease, but his eyes were clear. They were not darting around looking for an escape. They were focused. He walked up the steps and stopped at my table. "Hello, Dad," he said. "Hello, son," I replied. "You are 3 minutes late. Traffic on the connector," Kendrick said, pulling out a chair. A water main burst downtown. I had to take the surface streets. I nodded. "Sit down." He sat. He took off his baseball cap and placed it on the table. His hair was thinning a little on top. He was not dyeing it anymore. He was letting himself age. He was letting himself be real. A waiter approached us. "Can I get you anything, sir?" the waiter asked Kendrick. "Just water, please," Kendrick said. "Ice water." I looked at him. A year ago he would have ordered a scotch or a mimosa. He would have demanded the best table. Now he was happy with water. "How is business?" I asked. "It is steady," Kendrick said. "People always have leaky pipes. I fixed a boiler at the elementary school this morning. It was hard work, but the principal paid me on the spot." He reached into his pocket. He pulled out a worn leather wallet. It was not the alligator skin wallet he used to carry. It was simple cowhide. He opened it and took out 2 crisp $100 bills. He slid them across the table toward me. "Here is the payment for this month," he said. $200, plus $50 for the principal. I looked at the money. Technically, Kendrick did not owe me money. The $50,000 he owed Big Mike had been settled by the police raid and the subsequent asset forfeiture of Big Mike's criminal empire. The debts he owed to the banks were being paid through a court-ordered garnishment of his wages. But on the day I picked him up from the police station, I made him sign a contract. I loaned him $5,000 to buy tools and a used van. I charged him 4% interest. I told him that if he missed a single payment, I would repossess the van myself. He has not missed a payment yet. I picked up the bills. I checked the watermark. I held them up to the sunlight. "They look real," I said. Kendrick smiled. It was a dry, wry smile. "They are real, Dad. I earned them unclogging a septic tank in Marietta. You can smell the hard work if you get close enough." I put the money in my pocket. "Good," I said. "I will credit your account. You have 42 payments left." Kendrick nodded. He took a sip of his water. "Have you heard from her?" he asked. He did not say the name. He never said the name. I took a sip of my coffee. "I received a letter from the Bureau of Prisons yesterday," I said. "Inmate 4098 is being transferred to a medium security facility in Florida. Apparently she tried to organize a pyramid scheme among the other prisoners trading cigarettes for commissary privileges. The warden was not impressed." Kendrick looked down at his hands. He rubbed a callus on his thumb. "She never stops, does she?" he whispered. "Some people are broken in a way that cannot be fixed," I said. "They are defective cargo. You cannot repair them. You can only write them off and move on." Kendrick looked out at the rose garden. "I miss her sometimes," he admitted. "Not the yelling, not the stealing, but just having someone. It gets quiet in the apartment at night." I leaned forward. "Quiet is good, Kendrick. Quiet is where you build character. Noise is just a distraction." I reached down and pulled a wooden box from under the table. I placed it between us. I opened the lid. Chess pieces, hand-carved, ebony and ivory. "Are you ready to lose again?" I asked. Kendrick smiled. He cracked his knuckles. "I have been practicing, Dad. I joined a club at the community center. Old man Jenkins taught me the Sicilian defense." I raised an eyebrow. "The Sicilian defense is aggressive," I said. "It requires calculated risk." "I am feeling risky," Kendrick said. He set up the black pieces. I set up the white. We began to play. For the first 20 minutes we did not speak. The only sound was the click of wood on wood and the chirping of the birds. I watched his moves. A year ago, Kendrick played chess like he lived his life. He was reckless. He would sacrifice his queen for a momentary advantage. He would ignore his defense to chase a shiny opportunity. But today he was different. He was cautious. He built a solid pawn structure. He protected his king. He thought 3 moves ahead. He moved his knight to f6. "Check," he said. I looked at the board. I was trapped. If I moved my king, he would take my rook. If I blocked with my bishop, he would fork my queen. It was a brilliant move. It was a move of a logistics manager. I looked up at him. He was watching me intently. There was no arrogance in his face, just a quiet confidence. "You have improved," I said. "I had to," Kendrick said. "I learned that you cannot win if you do not value your pieces. Every pawn matters." I nodded. "That is a valuable lesson," I said. I tipped my king over. It hit the board with a soft thud. "I resign," I said. Kendrick's eyes widened. "You resign. But Dad, you never resign. You always fight to the bitter end." I looked at the fallen king. "Sometimes the smartest move is to know when the game has changed," I said. "You beat me, son. Fair and square. Kendrick stared at the board. A flush of pride rose in his cheeks. It was the first time in his life he had beaten me at anything without cheating. "Good game, Dad," he said softly. I signaled the waiter. "Bring us the dessert menu," I said. "And bring my son a coffee. He looks like he needs the caffeine." We spent the next hour eating apple tart and talking about plumbing. He told me about the different types of copper piping. He told me about the challenges of tankless water heaters. I listened. I asked questions. I did not judge. I did not offer advice. I just listened to a professional talk about his trade. As the sun began to lower in the sky, Kendrick stood up. He put his cap back on. "I have to go," he said. "I have an early job tomorrow. A bakery in Decatur needs a grease trap replaced before dawn." He picked up his wallet. "Thanks for the game, Dad, and thanks for the loan." I stood up. I extended my hand. Kendrick looked at it. He wiped his hand on his coveralls first, then shook mine. His grip was firm, rough, honest. "See you next Sunday, Kendrick," I said. "Do not be late." "I won't be," he said. He turned and walked away. He walked past the fountain. He walked past the luxury cars. He got into his dented white van. I watched him drive away. The taillights faded into the distance. I sat back down. I picked up the White King and placed it back upright on the board. I looked around the terrace. The other residents were sleeping in their chairs or reading magazines. They were waiting to die. I was not waiting. I was living. I had lost a house, but I had gained a home. I had lost a fortune, but I had gained a legacy. I picked up my phone. I opened the banking app. I transferred the $200 Kendrick had given me into a savings account. It was labeled Kendrick Turner Jr. It was a fund for a grandchild I did not have yet. But maybe one day. I looked up at the sky. It was a brilliant, piercing blue. The kind of blue you only see after a terrible storm has washed the world clean. I took a deep breath. The air tasted sweet. My name is Felix Turner. I am 69 years old. I am a retired logistics manager, and I have just successfully delivered the most important shipment of my life. I picked up the Black Queen. I held it in the sunlight. "Checkmate, Skylar," I whispered. "Checkmate." I put the piece down and signaled the waiter for one more cup of coffee. Life was good, and for the first time in a long time, the ledger was balanced. In logistics, we learned that a single corrupt link can destroy the entire chain. I applied this rule to my own blood, and it was the hardest inspection I ever passed. Many parents confuse love with enabling. We think that by paying debts and hiding mistakes, we are protecting our children, but we are only delaying their collapse. True love is sometimes a locked door. True love is letting them fall so they can learn how to stand up on their own. I lost a daughter-in-law, but I regained my son, and that is a profit margin no amount of money can buy. If you enjoyed this story of justice and redemption, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Have you ever had to use tough love to save a family member or deal with a toxic relative like Skylar? Let me know your story in the comments below. See you in the next video.